The bells of King's Landing tolled a mournful dirge beneath a lowering sky, the color of tarnished steel. Clouds crowded out the sun, and a fretful wind hissed through the crenellations of Maegor's holdfast, as if the Red Keep itself sensed that this day would change the course of kingdoms. Near the base of the great sept, an uneven ring of sand had been raked smooth for combat, but no amount of sweeping could cleanse the stink of treachery that hung over the court assembled to watch a boy king shed blood for honor he did not possess. Gendry Waters stood alone at the north end of the pit, the cumbersome weight of a borrowed breastplate settling across his broad shoulders. He flexed his fingers around the haft of a warhammer, far finer than any tool he had wielded in his master's forge. The head was black steel, the edge gilded, the haft bound in leathers, dyed the Baratheon yellow. If he closed his eyes, he could still smell the hot iron, the oil, the hiss of water when he quenched the metal. But there would be no quenching here save the sand drinking whatever life spilled beneath the hammer's fall. Across from him, 50 paces away, stood King Joffrey Baratheon in a shirt of gilded mail. The forge light in that false metal mocked the truth of his blood, for he was a lion-born, not a stag. A crimson surcoat, prancing golden lion rampant, fluttered in the wind like an arrogant standard. In Joffrey's gauntleted hands glimmered Heart-Eater, a longsword freshly forged for the king that had yet to taste true combat. Gendry had overheard talk that the blade was Valyrian steel. He doubted it. Even so, steel could cut. Steel could kill. Cersei Lannister watched from a dais chiseled from pale marble, her green eyes shards of ice as she clutched the arm of the Iron Throne. To one side, Sandor Clegane loomed, dark and hulking, mouth twisted by contempt. On the other, Tyrion Lannister leaned on his golden-tipped cane, his mismatched gaze skimming from bastard to king with something like worry. Varys fanned himself, expression unreadable, and Grand Maester Pycelle pretended mild astonishment at this spectacle, though Gendry had seen his gaze flick to the queen more than once in secret communion. And Lord Eddard Stark, gaunt, wearied yet unbowed, stood near the edge of the combat ring, flanked by a handful of northern guards whose gray cloaks snapped like wolf-tails in the wind. Ned Stark's arrival 3 days past had upended every certainty the Lannisters thought they held. The hand who had been condemned for treason returned from the Black Cells with a paper shield, Stannis Baratheon's letter proclaiming Joffrey illegitimate and naming himself rightful king. But the court, drunk on Lannister power, might have shrugged off parchment. Steel, however, commanded attention. Ned had invoked the sacred right of trial by combat, naming the realm itself as plaintiff. Robert's seed versus Cersei's impostor. That Gendry Waters existed. Robert's blood, if not his name, drove a spear through the lie Joffrey sat upon. And when Joffrey, in all his youthful bravado, declared he would face the blacksmith's boy himself to prove the Seven favored him, the queen could hardly forbid it without conceding weakness. So the lists had been drawn. Now trumpets brayed harsh notes. Sir Meryn Trant called for silence. Let all present bear witness, he intoned, voice echoing against the cobbles, that his grace, Joffrey of House Baratheon, of House Lannister more like, a voice cried from the crowd. Lannister guards surged to seize the fool who had spoken, but a ripple of uneasy laughter spread before dying under Cersei's glare. Sir Meryn cleared his throat. His grace faces Gendry Waters, son of Robert of House Baratheon, in single combat to answer the accusation of false kingship. The gods will favor the righteous. Gendry tasted copper on his tongue. He sucked in a breath, lungs tight against the weight of fate. He had never asked for this. He had been content to beat iron, to shape swords and helms for men whose wars meant nothing to him. But the truth Ned Stark whispered to him in the Black Cells had burned away that anonymity. You are your father's son. The realm must see Robert's strength in you. Strength. Gendry sought it now, grounding himself in memory. He saw the forge at the Street of Steel, the scent of charcoal, the apprentice's grind of labor that had corded muscle upon his arms. He saw Arya Stark's mischievous grin when they sparred with brooms in the stables, her laughter like river water over stones. He saw his mother's face, blurred by time yet warm with love, telling him Robert would have claimed him if only he had known. Joffrey lifted Heart-Eater in a flashy salute, blade catching a shaft of pale light. The crowd cheered, though their cries were wreathed in tension. Gendry hefted the hammer, testing its balance. It felt right. Solid. Inevitable. The High Septon, rotund in cloth of gold, raised both hands. May the Father judge. May the warrior guide. May the stranger deliver justice. Then shall. He stepped back. Pettifogging courtiers scattered like leaves. A hush fell, oppressive as storm clouds. Ser Meryn dropped a silk kerchief. It fluttered, drifted, kissed the sand. Joffrey lunged first, fast despite his slender build. His sword darted in a gleam. Gendry pivoted, the hammerhead swinging up to parry with a resonant clang. Sparks burst like fireflies. Joffrey snarled, pressing close, slashing in a series of shallow cuts, meant to bleed a foe into weakness. Gendry gave ground, studying. The king favored speed, but his footwork was court-taught, full of flourishes. No real fighter wasted motion so lavishly. Robert's voice lived in Gendry's blood, though he had never heard it, urging directness. A feint left, step right, hammer haft intercepting another thrust. Steel screeched against oak-bound metal. The crowd gasped when Joffrey overextended, and Gendry seized the moment. He slammed his shoulder into the boy king's chest. Joffrey staggered, boots skidding. Gendry swung low, the hammer crunching into Joffrey's greave. Metal dented, the bone beneath cracked like stale bread. Joffrey shrieked, fury drowning pain. He hacked wildly, one swing catching Gendry's pauldron and biting shallow. Blood welled hot, but Gendry barely felt it. They circled, hunter and stag, lion and bull. The sand bore dark stains now. Coaches and ladies shrank back beneath parasols. Only Cersei leaned forward, lips peeled in silent command, as though will alone could turn the tide. Joffrey tried for Gendry's head. The bastard ducked, hammer hooking upward in a brutal arc that connected with the gilded mail at Joffrey's ribs. Air exploded from the king's lungs. He collapsed to one knee. "Yield," Gendry said, voice rough. He did not want to kill a boy, even this one. "Say the words." "Never, bastard." Spittle flew from Joffrey's lips. He slashed at Gendry's thigh, carving flesh. Pain flared. Gendry roared, not in agony, but in something older, something that sprang from storm and sea. The wrath of Duran's line. He lifted the hammer high, higher, the weight singing through his arms, and brought it down. The head struck helm. Gold cracked like eggshell. A second blow felled the lion cub. Bones gave with sickening crunch. Blood spurted across the sand. A hush smothered the world, broken only by the croak of crows spiraling overhead, as though they had scented a feast. When Gendry stepped back, the hammer drooped from nerveless fingers. Joffrey's body twitched once, then stilled. His face, what remained, was unrecognizable. Cersei's scream tore across the yard, raw and feral. She surged toward her son, only to be seized by Ser Meryn and two guards. Her nails raked skin, leaving red crescents as she fought them. Sandor Clegane's helm turned, gaze fixed on the corpse of the boy he had once protected. Tyrion let out a breath like the collapse of a city. Ned Stark strode onto the sand, boots crunching crimson grit. He placed a steadying hand on Gendry's arm. "It is done," he murmured. "Well fought." Somewhere, a raven called. Chaos bloomed faster than wildfire. Cersei demanded vengeance, shrieking that the trial was rigged. Ser Meryn, at her signal, raised his blade to strike Gendry down, but Sandor stepped between them without a word. The hound's sword left its scabbard. "Move." Ser Meryn barked. Sandor's laughter was a raw scrape. "I'll not have the king's justice perverted by a mother's grief." His sword's point hovered at Ser Meryn's throat. "Stand aside." Into that tableau stalked Tyrion Lannister, voice whip-sharp. "Enough. My sister's grief is real, but the gods have spoken. By law, Joffrey's claim dies here." Cersei spat. "You vermin. You stand with this bastard. I stand with survival, Tyrion said. You will not start a slaughter in the yard, not when every noble in the capital watches. Do you wish the city to burn with tales of Lannister treachery? Pycelle tottered forward, beard trembling. The succession passes to Tommen, sweet innocent boy that he is, Tyrion finished. His gaze swept the crowd, landing on Ned. Unless Lord Stark would raise this hammerer as king. Ned's jaw tightened. Gendry's blood is true, but legitimacy cannot be bestowed by violence alone. The small council must debate. Stannis Baratheon's claim stands strongest. A ripple of dissent among the nobles. Stannis, the stern, unloved figure brooding in Dragonstone. But none could deny the law. Gendry did not care for thrones. His legs barely held him. Blood dripped from the gash at his thigh. The hammer slid from his grasp, thudding into sand beside Joffrey's ruined skull. He thought of hot pies baking at the Street of Flour, of Arya's laughter echoing in flea-bottom alleys. He thought of Wintersmith's smoke and honest toil. The throne's lure held no charm. He wanted only freedom from the nightmare that had swept him into Kingslayer's myths. Yet freedom would not come easily. The Red Keep was a nest of vipers. That night, as pyres blazed on the Blackwater's edge and bells rang the king's death, factions coalesced. Renly supporters claimed the realm could not stomach dour Stannis. Littlefinger whispered of Tommen. Sweet and malleable, under a regent's guidance, the Tyrells saw opportunity in marriage. In Ned Stark's chambers, beneath a banner of the direwolf, a clutch of loyalists gathered around a map of Westeros. Davos Seaworth had sailed into port, bearing Stannis' sealed pledge to recognize Gendry as Lord Legitimate. Storm's End, perhaps, once seats settled. "What do you want, lad?" Davos asked, voice gentle. Gendry stared at the candlelight dancing over the ink-dark seas. "A forge. Honest work. You have hammer arms fit for a kingsmith," Davos said. "But destiny seldom heeds desire. The realm will remember who broke the lion's cub." Ned touched Gendry's shoulder. "Robert would have been proud." Gendry met his eyes. "Would he? He never knew me. He would have known your courage." Ned's voice carried a father's sorrow. "But pride alone will not keep you safe. Cersei's wrath is a storm unchained. You must leave the city tonight." Arya slipped from the shadows then. Skinny as a switch, eyes bright. "I'll go too." "Absolutely not," Ned began. Arya folded her arms. "Hayes saved the realm from Joffrey. I can help save him from the Queen." "Nantro." Ned sighed. "Gendry goes north with Sir Roderick. You will travel separately with Yoren of the Night's Watch. 2 paths, less chance of pursuit." Gendry frowned. "North." "Winterfell," Ned said. "There you will have refuge until Stannis marches south. When victory settles, we'll see you legitimized as Gendry Baratheon, Lord of Storm's End." "Lord.u." The word felt like borrowed armor, ill-fitting across his shoulders. But north meant distance, and distance meant life. They left in the darkest hour before dawn. Sir Roderick Castle led a small column of northern men through the postern gate, cloaks wrapped over mail. Gendry rode a sturdy courser, the Baratheon warhammer hidden beneath plain wrappings. As they passed the mud-shrouded hovels of Fleabottom, a low whistle rose. From an alley stepped Tobho Mott, the master smith who had once owned Gendry's apprenticeship. Mott's dark eyes flicked over Gendry's muddy cloak, the blood-stiff wound poorly bound. "My boy," he murmured, voice soft as quenching water. "King's Landing is no forge fit for you now." "I never thanked you," Gendry said. "Strike true in life as you strike iron," the smith replied. He pressed a heavy purse into Gendry's palm. "For the road, and for materials when you build your own fires." Gendry's throat tightened. Master and apprentice clasped arms, then parted without another word. The city gates yawned, spilling them into wild country where the riverlands rolled green and treacherous. Ravens circled overhead, cawing like omens. Sir Roderick set a hard pace, south of the Blackwater, then east through Kingswood trails, to throw off any pursuit before turning north, by Maiden's Path, through hay-ripe fields. Yet the queen's vengeance rode tireless. By the third night, as they camped near a ruined sept cloaked in ivy, riders came, gold and crimson banners snapping, torches guttering. Lannister outriders pressed close. Sir Rodrik barked orders. Steel rasped free. Gendry took up his hammer. Pain flared anew in his wounded thigh, but the weight felt like home. The first Lannister charged, sword raised. Gendry met him in mid-swing, hammer smashing through the rim of a shield and into collarbone. A crunch, a scream, and horse and rider tumbled. Sir Rodrik's sword work was a northern gale, steady, lethal. Yet the Lannisters numbered thrice their party. Gendry swung, blocked. Swung again. Sand turned to mud beneath hoof and blood. A spear grazed his ribs. He barely felt it. One foe toppled under his hammer. Another's helm crumpled. At last, the survivors broke, fleeing with reins snapping. Torches dwindled to cinders against the dark. Sir Rodrik wiped his blade on a fallen cloak, gaze sparking with grim respect. "You fight like a Baratheon." Gendry sucked in ragged breaths. "I fight to live." Rodrik clapped his shoulder. "That is enough." Days became weeks. They skirted Sowing Shore, crossed the Mander, and turned north beyond the neck where reeds whispered secrets. At Moat Caelan's ragged teeth, they rode under stark banners, greeted by grey wolves on the ramparts. Word had flown ahead. The bastard who slew the false king came under Lord Stark's protection. Winterfell loomed as dusk bled crimson across the sky. Smoke curled from chimneys. Deery wolves howled welcome. In the Godswood, beneath the ancient weirwood's red leaves, Gendry knelt, unsure what prayer a smith could offer. He felt the heart tree's carved face studying him, eyes bleeding sap that glimmered like rubies. "Do you know the gods you kneel to?" Maester Luwin asked gently. "No. Perhaps they know you all the same." Luwin examined Gendry's wounds, tutting. "You should rest. Forge work may wait." But rest came fitful. Dreams plagued him. Joffrey's skull cracking like an egg. Cersei's screams twisting into a mother bear's roar. The Iron Throne melting into molten steel that pooled at his feet. From the coals rose a crown of black iron, jagged as stag antlers. When he reached for it, his hands burned. He woke drenched in sweat. Dawn crept pale through the shutters. The hammer leaned against the bedstead, silent witness. Gendry rose, limped to the window. Snowflakes drifted, first of the season, ghosting across courtyards where stable boys chased each other with sticks. The world felt fragile, suspended between breaths. Down in the yard, Jon Snow practiced with a wooden sword, ghost prowling nearby like a pale shadow. Jon glanced up, caught Gendry's gaze, and offered a nod. Outsiders recognizing kinship. In the days that followed, Gendry found a solace of sorts in Winterfell's forges. Mikken, the castle smith, tested him with barstock, heat, and anvil. Sparks flew. Rhythms of hammerfall muffled the clamor in his skull. Word spread quickly through the keep. Lord Robert's bastard was a smith of uncommon skill. Small folk came with hoes to mend, guardsmen with swords to sharpen, Benjen Stark's rangers with broken mail after skirmishes against raiders. Gendry tended them all, losing himself in work. Yet politics seeped like oil through stone. Messages arrived almost daily, ravens from Storm's End, from Dragonstone, from Bitterbridge, where Renly and the Tyrell host gathered. Stannis demanded fealty from the north, citing Gendry's victory as proof the gods favored Baratheon blood. Renly countered with honeyed promises of alliance, offering Margaery's hand perhaps to a northern heir. Robb Stark, called king in the north by his lord's bannermen, weighed every word. One frost-rimmed morning, Robb and his mother, Lady Catelyn, summoned Gendry to the great hall. Firelight flickered over stone walls as direwolf banners stirred. Robb rose from the high seat. "Gendry Waters." "Baratheon, if it please you," Catelyn corrected softly. Robb inclined his head. "Gendry Baratheon." Our maesters confirm Lord Stannis' letter legitimizing you by royal decree. All that remains is crown consent, yet the Iron Throne sits empty for now. The question is what you desire. Gendry felt every eye upon him. Great John Umber's feral grin, Meg Mormont's hawkish stare, the cool assessment of Roose Bolton. He swallowed. I desire peace, he said. A forge of my own. No throne, no war. Amusement rippled among the lords. Great John guffawed. The lad thinks he can walk away from crowns when crowns chase him with armies? Robb's gaze softened. I envy your wish. But war is upon us, whether we will it or no. Stannis marches on King's Landing. Renly may contest. The Lannisters mass at Harrenhal. Your presence, your name, is a banner. Armies will rally beneath. Mentor, I never asked to be born of Robert, Gendry muttered. None of us choose our parentage, Catelyn said, voice laced with pain of her own losses. But we may choose what we make of it. Robb stepped forward. Swear fealty to the north, forge for our armies, and we will shield you. When the storm ends, storm's end will be yours. I cannot promise ease, only honor. Gendry looked past him to the direwolf banners. He thought of Arya, wherever she walked, sharp as new steel, of Ned Stark's faith, of the smiths who saw worth in a bastard's hands. He thought of Joffrey's broken helm, and the silence that followed. He knelt. I, Gendry Baratheon, pledge my hammer and my heart to House Stark. The hall erupted, a cheer of swords against shields. Robb clasped his arm, sealing the vow. Winter deepened. Gendry worked day and night, forging axes for Umber men, arrowheads for Mormont rangers, mending the great chain for Maester Luwin. Between heats he trained with Jon Snow, hammer and sword, learning the northern style. Short, brutal, unflinching. Ghost watched, eyes burning like embers. News from the south crackled like wildfire. Stannis smashed Renly at Bitterbridge after a shadow in the night took Renly's life. The Tyrells fled to Highgarden. Loras wept fury. Stannis marched on King's Landing. Cersei barricaded the city, stockpiled wildfire. Tyrion, acting hand, schemed to defend the walls. One night, ravens screamed in the rookery. Stannis had reached the Blackwater. There, wildfire swallowed fleets. Dragons of green flame torched men alive. Stannis' assault broke upon the city walls, shattered by Tyrion's chain and Lannister cavalry under Tywin's banner, arriving in the nick of time. Stannis fled to Dragonstone with half an army. But amid the chaos, a smaller note, a whisper hidden in Maester's script, Tommen crowned, Cersei regent. High Septon blesses union of Baratheon bloodlines. And beneath, a single line. Price on Gendry Baratheon's head, 10,000 gold dragons. Gendry folded the letter, heart thudding. The hammer in his grip felt suddenly heavier, the forge's glow an uncertain light. He had killed one king to save a realm from a lie, yet another Lannister-crowned boy now sat the throne, and Cersei still ruled. His victory had cut one head from a hydra. Late that night in the empty yard, he swung the hammer against a training post, again and again, until wood splintered, until sweat froze in streaks across his brow. Jon Snow stepped out of the gloom. That post wronged you mightily. Gendry's laughter cracked. Kings rise, kings fall. Nothing changes. Then, everything changes, Jon said. Sometimes too slowly for men to feel. But the wheel turns. My hammer is no wheel. Jon regarded him. Come to the wall with me after the war. Help the watch reforge itself. Gendry slowed his breathing. Beyond Winterfell's walls, direwolves sang beneath the aurora. He imagined black steel hammered in the cold, forging chains to hold back darkness more ancient than any Lannister plot. He imagined purpose not bound to thrones, but to the living. I will, he said quietly. When the war ends. When, Jon echoed, as though it were a prayer. Spring brought ravens bearing tidings that cracked the realm wide. Robb Stark fell at the twins, betrayed under guest right. The North wept. Bolton knives seized Winterfell. The castle burned. Gendry fled into the Wolfswood with Bran and Rickon Stark, the youngest wolves, guiding them north beneath the watching eyes of whispering trees. In the frost-pinched wilderness, Gendry's hammer found new work, shattering chains of iron-born slavers, felling wights that prowled from forgotten barrows. Tales spread in hall and hearth of a smith lord bearing a stag-headed hammer who guarded Stark pups like a silent giant. Cersei's bounty hunters tracked them twice. Both times the northern snows swallowed their screams. Southward, lords muttered of prophecy. The bastard who slew a false king, whose hammer would break tyrants' crowns. Some claimed he was Azor Ahai reborn, forging Lightbringer with each enemy struck. Gendry scoffed at myths, yet each time he hefted the hammer, he felt history vibrating in the steel. Years turned. Tommen's rule frayed under court intrigues. The faith militant rose. Dragons stirred across the narrow sea. Through it all, blacksmith smoke curled from hidden hill forges where Gendry hammered sword after sword, gift to those who would not bow to lions. When Daenerys Targaryen finally crossed the sea, her dragons blazing above a fleet of unsullied, it was said she carried weapons of unbeatable steel, blades forged in secret by the bastard Lord of Storm's End, now called the Stormsmith. He never sought crowns, yet crowns bent paths toward him all the same. And on the day the dragon's shadows darkened King's Landing towers, Gendry Baratheon, scarred, grim, unbowed, stood beside Daenerys' banners. The hammer that had broken Joffrey's skull rested upon his shoulder. Beneath its weight thrummed the memory of that first trial by combat, the day a bastard chose the realm over lies. He wondered if Robert would know him now. He wondered if Ned Stark watched from some quiet hall of gods in the north. He wondered if the wheel at last was cracking. But those were questions for morrow. Today, dawn painted the sky blood red over the Blackwater. Bells tolled once more. This time not for the death of a king, but for the birth of something untried. Gendry gripped the hammer, felt its promise, and stepped into history's forge. The dawn sky over the Blackwater was a blacksmith's forge gone incandescent, molten gold at the horizon's lip, alloyed to smoky crimson higher up, the colors poured and folded by winds that howled like bellows. In that raw light, Gendry Baratheon watched Daenerys Targaryen's dragon's wheel, as though testing the currents that would bear them to war. Their scaled hides shimmered with inner fire, each beat of their wings stoking the city's fear a little hotter. The small folk of King's Landing had seen dragons only in tapestries and prayer. Today those myths unfurled above their heads in leathery flesh and talon. From the broken bastion of the city walls, the red and gold of Lannister banners still fluttered, stubborn as weeds in stone cracks. Somewhere within that maze of alleys, Cersei Lannister sat the Iron Throne, one hand on her Sun King's shoulder and the other on the hilt of every blade she had ever bought. Gendry imagined her pacing like a caged lioness, tail lashing in fury that a bastard's hammer might sound the doom her armies could not escape. Daenerys stood a few paces before him atop a rise of scorched earth, just outside the city's charred outer cordon. Her silver-gold hair streamed behind her, as if tugged by an unseen tide. Beside her, Tyrion Lannister adjusted the new clasp of his dark cloak, his face more creased than when Gendry had first seen him years ago, yet his mismatched eyes still quick with calculation. The dwarf glanced at Gendry's warhammer, now pitted and scarred from seasons of use, and then at the rings of mail peeking beneath Gendry's gambeson. "Does it weigh more each year?" Tyrion asked in a tone pitched low. "Or do you carry it because it reminds you never to set it down?" "It feels lighter before a fight," Gendry murmured. "Afterward it's heavier than sin." He flexed his calloused fingers around the haft, leather creaking. Daenerys extended an arm toward the distant battlements where ballistae angled skyward like thorny branches. "Your hammer may not crack castle walls, Lord Baratheon, but men follow the echo of that first blow you gave Joffrey. They hear it still, the realm reborn on iron and truth." Gendry studied her. The silver in her pale brows glinted, but her eyes were ancient amethysts, gleaming with something both fragile and unbreakable. "Truth alone won't melt the throne," he said. "Steel and fire will." "And fire I have," she replied. She lifted 2 fingers skyward. The enormous black beast, Drogon, dropped in a controlled dive that stirred debris and threw cloaks against calves. The dragon's shadows swept over ranks of unsullied, their spears set, shields forward. Whispering grasses flattened under the dragon's wind. Daenerys' hand brushed Drogon's muzzle. Sparks raced where her fingertips met scales. But this city remembers wildfire. If I loose the dragons, half of King's Landing might burn. Tyrion exhaled. When Stannis' fleet burned on this river, the people cursed the Lannisters. Should your dragons torch them now, they will curse you as well. He turned to Gendry. Your hammer cracked one lie. Crack another. The gates will open if the swords behind them remember Joffrey's corpse and Tommen's fear. They might surrender to a living legend, a stormsmith whose blows shatter crowns. 9. Gendry shook his head. Legends are smoke. Men bleed. Daenerys' gaze hardened. Smoke can choke a tyrant. But you are right. Blood must be spared where we can. Come, Lord Baratheon. We will send one more offer of terms. If Cersei refuses, the dragons fly. Them? They moved toward the vanguard where Davos Seaworth and Jon Snow, fresh returned from the wall, cloak rhymed with the North's deep winter, conferred over a crude map daubed on sheepskin. Jon's gray eyes found Gendry. The 2 clasped arms, the memory of Winterfell's forge pulsing like an ember between them. I never wanted to ride south again, Jon said. But ghosts chase me whichever way I turn. There is no forge where ghosts won't find us, Gendry answered. Davos tapped a finger on the sheepskin. The city's grain stores are low, water's foul. A siege of weeks would finish Cersei without dragonfire. But she has hostages enough that each passing day means more dead behind those walls. He looked at Daenerys. Mercy, your grace, might lie in swiftness. Daenerys nodded. She beckoned Missandei, who carried parchment and quill. Write these words, the queen said, and see them flown by raven over the walls. She dictated in Valyrian. Missandei translated into the common tongue. Tyrion added flourishes, citing the council's titles. King in the North, Stormsmith of Storm's End, Hand of the Queen. When the scroll was sealed with wax bearing a 3-headed dragon, a great gray raven flapped from its cage and lifted into the ashen air. Hours passed. No answer came. Evening dragged its bruised colors across the sky when the city gates finally groaned open. A single rider emerged beneath a makeshift banner of truce. Sir Jaime Lannister, golden hair dulled by dust, cloak torn, but posture unbowed. He dismounted before the allied host and approached the queen, helm tucked beneath one arm. Tyrion's breath hitched. He had not seen his brother since fleeing King's Landing. Jaime's sword belt hung empty, an act of trust or despair. His green eyes swept the gathered leaders. At last they settled on Gendry. You broke my son's skull, he said quietly, words measured. I once dreamed of challenging you for that, but the dream soured years ago. Now Joffrey's screams haunt only me, and they are justice enough. Gendry did not flinch. Speak your business. The Kingslayer looked to Daenerys. The queen refuses surrender. She will burn the city with wildfire if dragons approach the walls. Murmurs rippled through the ranks. Davos cursed under his breath. Jon's hand strayed toward Longclaw's pommel. Jaime continued, voice weary. I have seen the caches, barrels lined along every street. Under every sept, stacked near the Red Keep cellars, one spark and King's Landing becomes Harrenhal reborn. Tyrion stepped forward. Cersei placed those barrels when I was hand. I thought would remove them after the Blackwater. She moved them deeper, Jaime said. Each day she fills more torches with wildfire sap. The hand of the Queen's siege will become her pyre, and she means to burn herself upon it. Silence fell. Somewhere a raven croaked. The wind whipped campfires into fitful sparks. Daenerys' jaw clenched. I would not roast innocents to punish a tyrant, but I cannot allow Cersei to slay them either. What do you suggest? Jaime closed his eyes a moment, as though calling courage from some hollow inside his ribcage. Let me open the city to you. I still command loyalty among the gold cloaks. Tonight at the moon's zenith, ride a small force through the Dragon Gate. We will secure the wildfire barrels before dawn. When the sun rises, present Cersei with an army already in her keep, and she must yield or die alone." "Mensai." Tyrion's brows knitted. "And you? Will she not see your betrayal?" "She will," Jaime whispered. "She already thinks me traitor for stepping outside these walls without her leave. A traitor twice over is no worse." Jon said, "This is a trap." Jaime nodded. "Perhaps. But believe whatever you like. Gods know I no longer care how the songs judge me. I have killed one king for wildfire madness. I will not watch another queen burn 500,000 souls." He paused. "I would rather die with steel in my hand than watch green shadows on stone again." Daenerys studied him. "You swear you will open the gate and lead us to the wildfire?" "On my honor, what remains of it?" "Honor is thin as parchment," Gendry said. "But I'll ride." He looked at Daenerys. "If the Kingslayer lies, my hammer will wring the truth out of him." Tyrion's lips pressed into a line. "He may be many things, but he keeps his word when the stakes are highest." He extended a flask to his brother. "For courage." Jaime drank, grimaced. "I will wait at the outer sally port, alone. Bring at most 500, silent and swift." Lenderu. Beneath a moon pale as old bone, Gendry rode side by side with Jon Snow, behind Jaime Lannister's solitary banner. The company advanced under muffled hooves, unsullied in sand-soft sandals, northern spearmen in grey cloaks, Stormlanders with stags painted on shields. Far overhead Ricks and Drogon circled, wings blotting stars, their roars distant, withheld, silent hammers in the night. At the Dragon Gate, rusty chains rattled, and the portcullis groaned upward. No horns sounded, no archers shot. Jaime slipped into shadowed streets, torch shielded behind his cloak. They crept through twisting alleys where shuttered homes trembled with candlelight. Behind thin doors, Gendry heard children's soft sobs, women whispering prayers. The first cache lay beneath a smithy's floor. Ironic, Gendry thought, that wildfire hid below quenched forges. Jaime pried up planks. In the flickering torchlight, slime-green substance sloshed in clay jars, sealed with tar. The alchemist's sigils etched on each. "You know their dread," Jaime said to Gendry. "Handle them as gently as an infant's skull." Gendry's stomach shifted. He hefted a jar, surprisingly light for doom incarnate, then passed it to Davos, who lowered it into a waiting cart padded with straw. The cart would be hauled beyond the walls and hurled into the black water under guard. One by one they collected barrels. Under scriptoriums, in the crypt of Balor's Sept, beneath the guildhall of candlemakers where the smell of honey and wax could not mask chemical sharpness. Twice gold cloaks loyal to Cersei stumbled on their work, but true to Jaime's prediction, many bent knee to their former Lord Commander without a fight. Others fought, and their corpses cooled in gutters before dawn's indigo light. They reached the Red Keep's undercellars as the night's last hour bled away. Here, wildfire barrels packed the corridors so thickly, stooped men had to crab-walk between them. Sweat purled on Gendry's brow. One false hammer swing, one spark from an iron hobnail, and they would all vanish in emerald oblivion. Lanterns were doused. They worked by moonlight, filtering through arrow slits. Half the barrels had been removed when armored footsteps clanged above. Jaime stiffened. "She knows," he whispered. A door banged, torchlight spilled. Cersei Lannister appeared at the stairhead, hair loose, eyes wild. Behind her trailed Qyburn in black robes and Sir Gregor Clegane, the mountain reverend, hulking, face hidden by his corpse steel helm. "Jaime." Cersei hissed, voice frayed like fabric, gone through too many bloody washings. "You bring wolves and dragons into our den?" Jaime stepped forward. "It ends tonight, Cersei. Spare the city. Surrender." She laughed, brittle. "I will not bow to dragon whores and bastard smiths." Her gaze skewered Gendry. "Your hammer murdered my boy, and now you would steal my last defense? No more games." She produced a flint striker, brandished it above a nearby jar oozing green vapors. One spark, Jaime, and we all ascend in fire, hand in hand. Will you kill me as you killed the Mad King?" Jaime's face collapsed inward, pain-cutting lines deeper than any blade could carve. "Don't." Behind him, Jon's sword rasped from scabbard. Davos whispered a prayer. Gendry hefted his hammer. "I've broken one crown. I can break another." The mountain took one step, mace snarling through air. Gendry's hammer met it with a clang that shook dust from ceiling stones. Sparks sprouted. Wildfire fumes hissed. Hearts shrank in chests. Sir Gregor's inhuman strength shoved Gendry backward. His mace dented Gendry's cuirass. Pain blossomed. Gendry rolled sideways, mind roaring. "Barrel behind you." He pivoted, swung low. The hammer struck the mountain's knee, a note like anvils colliding. Bone shattered. The giant groaned but did not fall. Qyburn scuttled forward, scalpel raised, screeching. Davos caught his wrist, slammed his head into a wall. Qyburn slid down in silence. Cersei's striker clacked. Sparks spat into darkness. None found the wildfire vapor, not yet. She backed toward a staircase leading to the throne room. Jaime advanced after her. "Drop it, Cersei. I loved you more than any realm," she snarled. Tears gleamed. "But you would chain me while dragon sluts gut our children's legacy. I would save you from your madness." She dragged the striker again. Sparks flew closer, greener this time. Drogon's distant roar rolled through tunnels like doom thunder. Jaime's blade rasped half free. Gendry broke past the mountain's reach at cost of a cut along his ribs. Blood-soaked linen, but he ignored it. He hurled the hammer. It whirled end over end, a spinning promise of justice. It struck Cersei's hand. Bones snapped. The striker fell, clattering harmlessly stone to stone. Cersei screamed, knelt cradling shattered fingers. Jaime seized her shoulders. For a breath, the world held them. Brother and sister locked in a final tableau of love and ruin. The mountain lurched forward, mace raised to shatter Gendry's spine. Jon Snow leapt, long claw flashing. Sword met mace. Sparks erupted. Steel groaned. Together Jon and Gendry pushed the giant back against a barrel stack. Wood staved. Green liquid gushed. Jaime shouted, "No fire!" and leapt to shove barrels apart, preventing contact with torches. Gendry ducked an overhead swing, grabbed the hammer, and jammed the dented head into the mountain's helm visor with all his grief and fury. Metal buckled. He drove again. The giant sagged to knees. One more blow to the neck, and Sir Gregor toppled like a felled tower. Silence, except ragged breaths and the faint fizz of a wildfire puddle sliding harmlessly across stone. Cersei wept into Jaime's chest. Her voice muffled said, "I see them, Jaime. I see Joffrey, Myrcella, father's stern gaze. They walk away from me." Jaime stroked her hair, whispered something only she heard. At length, he looked up at Gendry, eyes rhymed red. "Take her to the cells. Guard her gently. Let a trial judge her, not vengeance." Gendry nodded. Jon signaled Unsullied forward. They bound Cersei's wrists in silken cloth. She did not resist. Jaime surrendered his sword, then followed her, head bowed. Dawn found King's Landing quiet. Smoke curling lazily from thousands of hearths that still existed, because barrels of wildfire now slept at the bottom of the Blackwater. Daenerys rode through the Dragon Gate unopposed, unsullied ranks clattering behind. Small folk knelt, confused, some cheering, others clutching children. None screamed, no flames licked beyond the Red Keep's walls. In the throne room, the Iron Throne loomed, black, jagged, forged by Aegon's hate, and hammered into shape by dragonfire a century gone. Gendry had once dreamed of steel shapes, of forging perfect edges. Gazing on that twisted throne, he thought not of craftsmanship, but of broken backs and sundered souls piled beneath it. Cersei knelt at its foot in chains, flanked by Unsullied and Sir Jaime, also chain-bound for form's sake, though no guard laid hand on him. Tommen sat on a low stool, too small for the moment, his cheeks streaked with tears. Maester Pycelle trembled nearby. Qyburn's seat was empty. Daenerys halted before the throne. Fires in the brazier lit her silver hair like a crown forged from dawn. "This seat," she said, voice even, "has bent good men to monsters and made monsters out of cowards. It is a curse wrought in steel." She turned to Tyrion. "What sentence for a queen who would burn her people?" Tyrion's eyes flicked to Cersei, his sister, his memory of childhood twisted into 9 parts love and 9 parts pain. He bowed. "Let her stand trial before the realm. Let justice be named openly. Pendragon, lion, or wolf, the realm must hear her crimes from her own lips." Daenerys nodded. "Agreed." She faced Gendry. "And the Stormsmith. You have broken 2 tyrants, one with a hammer, one with courage. What claim do you make?" Gendry felt every gaze weigh upon him. Unsullied, Northerners, his fellow Stormlanders, the brotherhood of smiths come to see him rise. He stepped forward until the throne's blades mirrored in his dark eyes. "I claim the right to smash this chair into scrap," he said, voice low but carrying. "For every edge here once cut a soul, or will cut another still. Melt it, your grace. Let a new world rise from clean steel." "Then once." Gasps fluttered through the gallery. Daenerys' lips parted. Drogon roared beyond, sensing the moment, a furnace in his chest. Tyrion whispered, "A bold request, my lord." "My name is Gendry Waters, still in half the realm," Gendry said. "Let the world remember the bastards who unmade the old lies." Jaime, despite chains, smiled faintly. "To unmake a throne forged by dragonfire requires dragonfire once more." Daenerys stepped toward the dais. She ran a fingertip along one twisted blade, then drew blood on its serrated edge. She regarded the droplet thoughtfully. "I dreamed of sitting here since childhood," she murmured. Then louder, "Perhaps dreams must die for the living to breathe." Her gaze met Gendry's. "Stormsmith, break it." Gendry hefted his hammer. He circled the throne's base. The hall held its breath. With a cry that sounded of anvils striking, he swung. Iron shrieked. A blade snapped free. Another blow caved a twisted backrest. Sparks flared, danced along stone. Tommen watched, eyes huge, the destruction of what had guided his life script. Strike after strike, Gendry dismantled the Iron Throne. Blades buckled, welded seams split, centuries of victories and torments echoed in each resounding clang. Tyrion flinched each time, hearing ghosts arguing over ruined steel. Davos muttered prayers. Jon Snow's face was still as ice, yet in his eyes a storm raged. Perhaps mourning, perhaps hope. Finally, the throne lay in jagged heaps across the steps, an unmade crown. A dead myth. Gendry's chest heaved, sweat dripped off his chin. He lowered the hammer, head bowed. Daenerys turned to the gathered lords and ladies. "The throne is broken. The realm shall forge its rule anew. Councils of houses, chosen by lords and small folk both. The dragon's rule will be a council's council." Now. Boos, cheers, shock. Emotions rippled. Lord Jon Royce shouted that the Vale would not bow to councils of small folk. Sir Brienne called that duty and honor demanded unity. Debate ignited, like fresh steel plunged in water. Gendry stepped back into shadow. The hall no longer belonged to him. He moved toward an archway where a cool breeze whispered of open sky. Jon Snow followed. They strode onto the outer ramparts, overlooking Blackwater Bay. Dawn turning water bronze. "I thought I'd feel lighter," Gendry said. Jon rested hands on the stone parapet. "The wheel spokes break slow, but they break." He eyed the hammer. "What now?" "Storm's End needs rebuilding. The realm needs smiths more than lords." Gendry shrugged. "I'll start with nails, then walls." Jon chuckled. "I'll need nails too. The wall fell in places. When winter lessens, I must rebuild." They stood in silence, 2 bastards who had felled crowns and yet remained only men. Wind carried gull cries. Below, Drogon landed on the shattered throne pieces, his talons sifting metal shards. He exhaled a column of fire so hot the ruins liquefied, ran rivulets down steps like molten candles. Jon spoke softly. When you first struck Joffrey, I said, change was slow. Sometimes it's one hammer stroke. Sometimes one dragon breath. Gendry watched the molten metal pool, cooling into new shapes the masons would cast into plowshares, stairs, door hinges for orphanages and granaries. Let's hope we have enough breaths left to finish the work. Cersei's trial consumed 3 moon turns. Witness after witness recounted crimes. The wildfire plot, the orchestration of Robert's death, atrocities during her war with the Faith. Jaime testified last, eyes hollow, each answer a dagger lodged in his own flesh. When guilt was pronounced, Daenerys offered exile to the free cities in place of death, provided Cersei renounce all claims and take holy vows. Cersei spat on the floor, demanded death, but Jaime begged her to live. In the end she accepted exile, sailing east, escorted by a single galley, the lioness declawed. Tommen abdicated, choosing a simple septon's life under the faith of the Seven, free of crowns he never desired. The council, lords, guildmasters, representatives of smallfolk, elected Sansa Stark as first mistress protector of the realm, her northern resolve tempered by southern schooling under Marguerite Tyrell's tutelage. She took no throne, but presided from a weirwood-carved chair in the Queen's garden. Daenerys retained command of the Unsullied and the dragons, vowing to fly where revolt threatened peace, not to rule, but to remind kings of consequence. Tyrion served as voice on the council. Davos managed fleets. Missandei oversaw laws translated into every tongue. Brienne commanded the new Kingsguard, its white cloaks open to women and lowborn alike. Storm's End rose anew on chalky cliffs, its stones reset by masons singing of hammers and dragons. Gendry refused titles beyond Lord of the Rainwood, a lesser honor he insisted held fewer feasts to attend. He built vast forges, opened doors to apprentices of any station. Under the Stormsmith Guild, orphans learned ironcraft, forging nails and hinges for villages scarred by war. Arya arrived one windswept afternoon, hair hacked short, eyes bright with roads traveled. She tossed him a blade she'd taken from Braavos, asked if he could temper Valyrian steel anew. Gendry grinned. If you can sit still while I measure balance. She laughed. They dueled like children in the yard while smokestacks puffed overhead. Jon Snow returned north. Once a week a raven arrived. Descriptions of rebuilding the wall, of free folk learning farms instead of raids, of ghost-lit nights where the aurora shimmered like a dragon's soul across black ice. Gendry sent him steel nails, axe heads, even hinges shaped like direwolves. Years passed like strokes of the hammer. Steady, ringing, each leaving a mark. Children playing in King's Landing squares marveled at a statue. The broken iron throne cast into a ring encircling a seedling tree, symbol of the realm's rebirth. Beneath it read, "From iron broken, roots of peace." One winter's evening Gendry stood before that tree. Snow fell gentle as ash. He laid a hand on the iron ring, cold under wool gloves. He thought of Robert's laughter, of Ned's steady gaze, of Joffrey's death rattle, Cersei's tear-slick face, Jaime's plea, Drogon's furnace breath. All of it alloyed in him like steel carboned by fire. "Stormsmith," a voice murmured. Tyrion stepped from shadows, older, slight limp, but eyes still alight. "I wondered where the wheelbreaker would wander tonight." Gendry smiled. "Checking the weld." Tyrion exhaled mist. "We have councils, charters, and quarrels, measured by ink instead of swords. Some days I fear quarrels, by ink cut deeper. That's why we rebuild," Gendry said. He tapped the ring. "Metal can be reforged. So can laws. And men." He slanted a look at Tyrion. "And lions, perhaps." Tyrion's chuckle puffed fog. "Lions now draft grain quotas. A fate worse than execution." He sobered. "I placed my sister on a ship. Some nights I hear waves and wonder if the gods allowed mercy or prolonged torment." "Mercy is forging the iron again," Gendry said. New form, new purpose. They stood in companionable silence until bells tolled curfew. Gendry shouldered his hammer. Still dented from that night in the undercellars, yet bright with oil. "Time to bank the forge," he said. Tyrion bowed with mock grandiloquence. "The realm thanks its smith." Gendry walked through falling snow toward his workshop on the Street of Steel, where orange light glowed through shutters. Inside, apprentices laughed loud. Metal rang, the language of creation. He crossed the threshold, warmth embracing him, sparks dancing like tiny stars. Hammers rose and fell in rhythmic promise, echoing a future still being shaped. He hung the war hammer above the hearth, an heirloom of victory and warning both. Then he drew on thick gloves, chose a newer tool, and stepped to an anvil where raw iron awaited. With each measured strike, he heard the distant memory of bells, the hush of a court holding its breath, the crack of gilded helm under righteous weight. But louder still rang the sound of new steel being born, and in that song he found the peace he'd chased across battlefields and thrones. The wheel, once forged to grind men beneath it, now lay as shards melted into plowshares, into hinges, into nails fastening beams of homes that would outlast any crown. And the stormsmith hammered on, shaping daybreak from the ruins of night, one glowing strike at a time. Snow lay thick as down across the sleeping city, muting the clatter of carts on the Street of Steel and muffling the hammer beats that echoed beneath Gendry's workshop shutters. Inside, the forge thrummed like a living heart. Bellows rushed, iron hissed, hammers rang. Yet even the raucous rhythm of metal striking metal seemed gentled, as if the very air understood how fragile the peace beyond those walls had become. Gendry wiped soot from his brow with a forearm, squinting at the sword blade glowing cherry along its length. The steel was edge-forged from a splinter of the melted iron throne, tempered now with layers of northern iron. He quenched it in oil that sizzled like summer rain on cobblestones, watching golden ripples streak over the surface. When the blade cooled, he set it on a rack beside 36 others, each destined for the night's watch, ferried north at Jon's request. Dragonglass-tipped spears leaned nearby, hafts of icy weirwood carved with runes of the old tongue. Winter had not yet loosened its grip beyond the wall. Jon had written, and rumors of pale shadows drifting south beneath uncaring stars weighed heavily on every line of his letter. The door creaked open, spilling lantern light across straw-scattered floorboards. Arya Stark slipped inside, shawl hooded against frost. Her gray eyes held a brightness that made Gendry's weary limbs stir with new warmth. She drew a slim dagger and twirled it once. "I checked the balance," she announced. "It's perfect." Gendry's mouth quirked. "You know I'd make you nothing less." She flipped the dagger, caught it by the blade, and offered the hilt. "Bound for Braavos with me in 2 days? You sail again so soon?" Nymeria's shadow grows larger every time I close my eyes. Her grin crooked to one side. "I promised the captains of the sisters free passage so long as no one asks what's in the crates. They think it's saffron. I'm guessing dragonglass and steel aren't acceptable tariffs in Braavos these days. Not when magistrates still bow to old Lannister coin." She sobered. "But swords in the dark corners of the world have a way of finding the right hands, and the wrong ones." Gendry leaned against the anvil, arms folded. "Jon's letters speak of pale wanderers, ice wraith scouts testing the gift and skirting the ruins of Last Hearth. If the dead come again, we need every sword here more than in Braavos." Arya's shoulders stiffened. "The faceless men whisper of deeper wars than those fought on maps. They speak of loafers." "Knights, kings, lieutenants," Gendry finished, rubbing a newfound scar along his ribs. The wound from the mountain had faded to a jagged silver seam, but it pulled tight whenever cold seeped too deep. "I forged as many obsidian blades as could fit a cart. They leave at dawn. Jon sent ravens. The winds north of Queenscrown howl with voices not heard. He thinks Hardhome wasn't the last foothold." Arya bit her lower lip and studied him, eyes measuring, weighing. Come with me. Just for this voyage. I know you have your forges, your apprentices, your councils. But I hear your hammer after the lamps snuff out. You still forge for battle even when you say the wars are done. Then Sal. Gendry watched twin plumes of his breath meet and mingle in lamp haze. Jon will need a master smith more than Braavos needs one more dagger in the dark. I have to send these north. Arya stepped close, laid a cool hand over his soot-rough knuckles. Winter's not the only storm climbing your walls, Stormsmith. Unrest swells in the Stepstones. Pirates brag they've captured dragon eggs. And in every market of Essos I hear murmurs. Daenerys Targaryen's dragons haven't been seen in skies east of Mire for half a year. Some say they molt and grow restless. Others claim the last of old Valyria has stirred. So. Gendry frowned. Rumors. Rumors, yes, but ones that draw sharp teeth. She flicked her dagger aside, the blade flashing. Did you know the new council now holds sessions under guard day and night? Grain shipments vanish on the Roserad. Fleets disappear between Storm's End and Dorne. Someone's testing the realm seams. Gendry sighed. By tearing at caravans. By looking for the stitch that unravels everything. Boot heels clacked on the threshold, heralded by a soft rap. Tyrion Lannister ducked through the doorway wrapped in a wolf fur mantle, cheeks red with cold. Behind him lumbered Brienne of Tarth, stooping to clear the lintel. Tyrion mopped snow from his brow. There you are, he said to Arya. I should have guessed you'd find the smith even in an avalanche. She smirked. Your sense of direction is improving, imp. My titles are more formidable these days. Tyrion brushed off his mantle, revealing the brooch of the hand of the council. No longer a hand for kings, but for a realm of equals, at least, in theory. He turned to Gendry. We need you at the Red Keep, now. Gendry straightened. The keep is no longer a red lion's den, and I'm no fan of candle-scented chambers. Nevertheless, Tyrion said, Daenerys returned from her survey of Dorne this morning. She summoned the full council for sundown, and Storm's End is to be represented by its newly reticent lord. He jingled a scroll case. We intercepted a raven from the Stepstones bearing Queen Cersei's lion sigil, an empty sigil. Mind, which is odd enough. Its message. The black fire stirs. The storm returns false calm. Baratheon steel shall bend. Ah. Gendry exchanged a quick glance with Arya. Black fire, the pretender's sword of old. Blade, banner, ideology, Tyrion said. Griffkin from across the narrow sea have long dreamed of retaking the throne with Blackfire steel. Somehow they learned the throne is gone, but still they circle. Our spies claim a sell-sail named Orion Bloodraven Styles, himself Aegon VI, Blackfire reborn. He rallies pirates around promise of dragon eggs stolen from the east. Brienne rested a gauntleted hand on Gendry's anvil, the wood creaking beneath her weight. The queen believes someone within the council aids them. Tyrion's eyes narrowed. She trusts few. She trusts your hammer, though. Trusts that when you strike for the realm, not for banners. She wants Storm's End to head an expedition to the Stepstones, a show of unity and might. Gendry shifted, feeling the weight of the warhammer hung above the hearth. Its head nicked where it had broken Cersei's hand. I swore no oaths of war after Joffrey died. I pledged to forge plowshares. The realm's fields won't matter if corsairs choke our sea lanes, Tyrion said. Think of it as forging a greater peace. Arya folded her arms. I'm sailing east anyway. Take passage with me. Hunt eggs and pretenders with your hammer. We'll leave Jon to build ice walls while we watch the waves. Brienne cleared her throat. Sir Jaime asked me to watch over you. Her blue gaze flicked Arya's way. Both of you. Tyrion pinched the bridge of his nose. Jaime Lannister currently resides under light guard in the Maiden Vault, and sends me daily letters criticizing improper flower arrangements, and the council's grammar edits. If Cersei's Blackfire rumor proves true, he may find freedom as ransom. We cannot risk his escape, nor assassination. Your duty remains his. Sir Brienne. Then? Jaime isn't going anywhere. Brienne argued quietly. His leg never healed proper. All the same, the Queen named you Lord Commander to keep him tethered. Tyrion sighed, then swung his gaze back to Gendry. Come to the keep. Listen before you refuse. Gendry looked around. The glowing forge. Apprentices bent over tongs. Arya's dagger resting on the anvil. Sparks drifting like fireflies in warm dark. He thought of Jon's letter describing corpses raised by necromancers in the haunted forest. He thought of dragons unseen for seasons and a sellsword king brandishing stolen eggs. The realm seems indeed pulled taut. Give me an hour, he said. By twilight, torches guttered along the Red Keep's winter-bleached ramparts. Gendry crossed the throne room, the melted throne replaced by a dais of simple white oak benches arranged in a semicircle. Daenerys sat center. Silver hair bound with a leather torque, no crown. To her left perched Sansa Stark, red hair coiled, eyes assessing. On Daenerys' right stood Davos Seaworth, gray-bearded and sea salt steady. Margaery Tyrell, Willas at her side, represented Reach Vineyards newly blooming again. Jon Royce wore burnished bronze. Asha Greyjoy smirked behind sea-green eyes. Across from them, Ellaria Sand rested her hands on a sun and spear staff, flanked by two daughters armored in lapis. Conspicuously empty was the seat reserved for Prince Trystane of Dorne, rumored to be ill, or, rumor whispered, dead. Tyrion announced Storm's End's arrival. Gendry strode forward, Arya at his heel. They bowed. Daenerys inclined her head. Lord Baratheon. She said, voice smooth as forged steel. Your forges arm the north. Now we must secure the south. Sansa's gaze was cool but respectful. Our coastlines bleed. Fisherfolk vanish. We need eyes and strength in the Stepstones. Davos unfurled the Raven's parchment. Black fire designs resurface each generation. This time the pretender has a novelty, dragon eggs. The small folk love stories of lost dragons. He grimaced. If corsairs hatch even one, they'll unmake every levee we've built. Margaery's gloved fingers tapped lacquered armrest. So we send dragons first, torch their fleet. Daenerys shook her head. Drogon molts. Rhaegal guards the hatchery. Viserion patrols winter skies with Jon. I will not divide them until they're all strong. She looked to Gendry. I ask you to take a fleet. Storm's End galleys, plus 20 from the Reach, 10 from the Iron Islands under Lady Asha. Find this blood raven, uncover truth of the eggs, extinguish whatever fire he thinks to steal. Arya Stark will serve as your shadow. Her skills speak for themselves. Arya's mouth twitched. I plan to cut throats either way. Jon Royce leaned forward. If the pretender truly gains an egg and hatches it, we risk another dance of dragons. Which is why we must act before sea salt and celestial become dragonfire, Daenerys said. Then softer, Stormsmith, will you strike once more? Gendry studied the council faces. Some hungry for glory, others weary of war, but afraid of worse. He recalled Melisandre's warning to him years ago, when she called him king's blood. Your power lies in forging paths as you do swords, but each forge exacts a price. He had paid many prices already, yet forging did not choose him. It called him. He nodded. I'll lead the fleet, but I need good oarsmen, sellswords, menders, people who know islands and storm currents. And one more thing. He touched the pommel of his hammer strung across his back. If we find dragon eggs, we don't shatter them. We bring them home. Daenerys' nostrils flared. Home may not be Westeros shores. Then we bring them to you, Gendry clarified. The realm needs dragons guided by hands that remember this. He tapped the scar across his ribs. Pain shapes mercy. Sansa's mouth tightened, but she inclined her head. Davos clapped the table softly. Done then. We sail with the next tide. Winter's sun crawled above the horizon when Storm's End's fleet unfurled black and gold sails stitched with leaping stags. Reach criers sang of soft spring not far ahead. Dornish light galleys skimmed waves like sand adders crossing dunes. Ironborn longships loped behind, sails patched, but eager for plunder's promise. On the prow of the war, galley Hammerfall stood Gendry, sea air burning his lungs. Arya crouched on the rail, wind tugging her hair. Below deck hold lay crates of obsidian spears, crossbows fitted with dragon-glass bolts, nets of fine steel. Apprentices from the forge slept beside coiled ropes, their ears still ringing from hammers days past. In the stern castle, Captain Serbara Morn barked orders, the weathered woman's voice rough as rope. Seagulls shrieked overhead. The fleet slipped across calm seas, too calm for winter, and Gendry tasted omen in the salt. On the fourth dusk, a murk rose, shrouding them in drifting fog. Lamps glimmered like ghostly eyes, oars dipped silently. Bara tense whispered of shoals that devoured hulls when charts faltered. Gendry scanned the mist until shapes loomed, jagged islets, sea fangs. The Stepstones. Shadows rippled where water met rock, as if tides exhaled secrets. Arya touched his elbow. Look. A black hull, huge as a leviathan, slid from fog. Its sails were gray as belly wounds, emblazoned with a three-headed dragon wrought in silver instead of red. Oars parted water in perfect unison. Asha's longship Crow's Eye tacked to intercept, but more shadows emerged. 5, 6, 10 great hulks, silent, bearing sigils none recognized. At the vanguard flew a dark banner stitched with a sword of black and silver flame. Blackfire. Bara shouted orders. Drums pounded. The Reach galleys formed shield wall. Ironborn slid chains across decks. Gendry grabbed his hammer. Arya drew needle and the Bravosi dagger, eyes gleaming. A caw ripped overhead. Raven, snow-feathered rather than black, wings huge. It circled once and vanished into fog. Gendry frowned. The enemy flagship pivoted broadside. A horn bellowed, deep as abyss. Lines of smoke arced from its deck. Pots of wildfire flung by catapults. Green flame blossomed across still water glory, a Reach galley. Sailcloth ignited, screams pierced fog. Bara cursed. They wield wildfire now. Gendry raced to the bow, hammer raised. Arya hopped onto the rail. I can board them, she hissed. No, he said. Too many. Another volley soared. Ironborn shields tossed back one pot, but a second shattered on Crow's Eye, coating mast and rigging in emerald conflagration. Men leaped overboard, shrieking, skin sloughing in molten globs. Gendry turned to the armorer, crouched at the scorpion ballista. Dragonglass bolt, now. The man hefted a thick quarrel, tipped with dark obsidian. Aim for their catapult arm. The armorer cranked, loosed. The bolt streaked across gloom, its black tip catching faint lantern glow before splitting the wooden arm. Wildfire pots toppled inward, breaking open on deck. Green hell engulfed the Blackfire ship's midsection, but instead of chaos, a roar of triumph rolled from the enemy ranks. Shapes moved within the flames, figures clad in scaled armor that shimmered without burning. Arya's eyes widened. They walked through wildfire. Gendry felt ice down his spine. Alchemist's trick? Fireproof clothes dunked in some concoction? Or darker magic? The enemy vessel lurched, pivoted again. From its inferno-wreathed bow leapt a silhouette. Tall, lean, armored in mirrored black. He landed on Hammerfall's deck with a clang. His helm bore dragon wings. From it billowed a cloak of smoke that seemed to feed off the wildfire's glow. In gloved hands he carried a slender blade whose steel shimmered oily purple-black. Arya stepped forward, needle angled. Who are you? The figure removed his helm. His face was unnaturally fair, almost waxen. Eyes pale violet beyond Targaryen norm, as though drained by moonlight. He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. I am Aegon Blackfire, he said, voice soft yet carrying. Rightful king, I have come to reclaim my sisters. Gendry's hammer slid into guard position. Sisters? Eggs, Aegon corrected. Hatched in secret, guarded by sorcerer's flame. He glanced at Hammerfall's mainmast, where 3 crates bore the sigil of Storm's End. Your queen hoards dragons. I will restore them to the world. By burning fleets? He shrugged. Every forge needs fire. He lifted his sword, oil sheen rippling. This is Dark Sister reborn. It drank wildfire and grew strong. He pointed at Gendry. You broke a lion's skull. Break this. Arya lunged. Aegon parried. Sparks spilled, but his blade did not nick. Arya rolled, struck again. Dark Sister slithered aside, slicing air with uncanny speed. Before she could recover, Aegon caught her wrist, twisted. Arya hissed, dropped needle. Gendry drove forward, hammer descending. Aegon released Arya and leapt back. The hammer fractured deck planks, sending splinters upward. Wind whipped Aegon's cloak. Wildfire embers swirled around him but left cloth unscorched. You cannot break what shadows have tempered, he murmured. But you can join them. He slashed. Gendry blocked with the hammer's haft. Iron shrieked as Valyrian steel bit deep, nearly severing the shaft. Gendry wrenched away, heart pounding. A weapon too fast, too keen. Asha Greyjoy stormed from flaming rigging, axed cleaver raised. She brought it down. Aegon sidestepped, slice across her thigh. She cursed, staggered. Gendry grabbed a rope, swinging overhead to land behind Aegon. Arya darted low, retrieving needle. Together they attacked. Hammer overhead, rapier thrust, axe from Asha striking crosswise. Dark Sister spun, flick parrying all 3. Aegon smiled. Too many edges. None true. Bendendi. Bara yelled from the helm. Ship to starboard, brace! Hammerfall shuddered as another vessel collided. Enemy grappling hooks snagging rails. Blackfire soldiers swarmed. Helms carved like dragon maws. Shields black glass. Stormlanders met them. Steel rang. Smoke. Gendry fighted high. Arya stabbed at Aegon's thigh. Asha chopped for knee. Aegon twisted, used Gendry's hammerhead like a pivot, vaulted over it, landing behind them. He kicked Asha aside, riposte at Arya. She ducked but blood blossomed along her cheek. Fury flooded Gendry. He hurled the half-severed hammer haft aside, seized a dragon-glass spear from a fallen soldier. Aegon's eyes flicked to the volcanic glass tip. Knight's tools, he mocked. You would kill me like dead things. Gendry thrust. Aegon blocked, but dragon-glass chipped Dark Sister's edge, sending an unearthly shriek through steel. Aegon blinked. Interesting. He redoubled, thrusts a blur. Gendry parried, muscles trembling. Obsidian shards shattered, blade sliced his forearm. He stepped back. Arya hurled her Braavosi dagger. It nicked Aegon's shoulder. No blood. He turned to her. Eyes glowed a moment too bright. Arya froze, not with fear but confusion. Gendry threw the spear like a javelin. Aegon pivoted, letting it pass, then flicked his wrist. Dark Sister sliced the spear mid-flight, both halves clattering useless. Asha scrambled up, tackling Aegon's legs. They tumbled. Aegon struck her temple with pommel. She fell limp. Arya slashed. He caught her blade barehanded, gauntlet sparking as Valyrian steel met steel. With other hand he backhanded her. She sprawled. Gendry surged, picked up his broken hammer. Before Aegon could regain footing, Gendry swung the jagged stump. It struck Helmless temple, bone cracked. The pretender staggered, eyes flaring. Gendry planted a boot to his chest and shoved. Aegon toppled over rail into swallowing sea, cloak aflame, sword slicing the water like black lightning. Silence punctured only by battle roars elsewhere. Arya coughed, wiped blood. Is he dead? Doubt it. Gendry rasped, peering into churning dark. No sign. Fires smoldered across 2 ships. Others burned further out. But Blackfire banners retreated, signaling withdraw. Fog swallowed them as fast as they'd come. Bara limped forward. Casualties heavy. Reach flagship gone. Crow's eye crippled. She reported through grit teeth. Yet we hold eggs safe. But that thing, was it man? Gendry's gaze lingered where Aegon vanished. Man twisted by shadow. Burn-proof. Skin pale as ghost. A sorcerer's vessel, perhaps. Arya retrieved needle, sheathing with trembling fingers. He said, "Sisters as if eggs were kin." Bara pointed at the crates. "We must not open them on deck. Too much heat." Gendry felt old dread. He turned to Arya. "If these eggs hatch, we need dragons strong, not stolen. We sail for Dragonstone at once." He bent, checked Asha's pulse. Strong. Crewmen carried her below. Gendry bound Arya's cut, then his own. Night deepened. Flames dwindled to embers. The sea resumed its slow heartbeat. But across waves, faint horns wailed, echoing ancient songs of conquest. Gendry knew the fight was far from finished. Dragonstone's black basalt towers pierced a storm-racked dawn when Hammerfall limped into harbor. Daenerys awaited at the quay, astride a white mare, Drogon coiled above on a cliff spire. Eyes ember-bright. Repair crews rushed lines. Maesters readied stretchers. Gendry descended the gangplank, the egg crates borne behind. Daenerys' gaze flicked over the scorched hull. Wounded men. Arya's bandaged cheek. Report. Gendry knelt. Blackfire fleet ambushed us. They wield wildfire and sorcery. We saved the eggs, but a pretender calling himself Aegon Blackfire, perhaps something more, escaped. Daenerys dismounted, strode to the crate, laid a hand on lid. Heat pulsed. She looked to Drogon. The dragon's pupils narrowed. He hissed, feathering wings. Daenerys unlatched the crate. Inside lay 3 eggs. One deep indigo shot with silver lightning veins. One pale jade, swirling gold speckles. One black streaked red. Warmth radiated. Gendry's shoulders prickled. Daenerys whispered a word in Valyrian. Rhaegal's distant roar answered from keep ramparts. She shut the lid. These were stolen from the labyrinthine crypts beneath Valyria's smoking sea years ago. She said, eyes distant. "I feared the stories were rumor. Now I hold proof." Arya asked, "How did Blackfire sorcerers walk through wildfire?" Daenerys frowned. "Some alchemists perverted Magilor to bind salamander oil to cloth. Resists fire for minutes. But his skin should blister." She studied Gendry's gash. "You struck him and bone cracked. Yet if he lives, sorcery shields him." Drogon roared again, wings unfurling. Shadows raced across stone pier. Daenerys stepped aside. The dragon slid nearer, sniffed crates, nostrils blowing smoke. He tapped top with talon, then met his mother's gaze. She nodded. Drogon enveloped crates in wings. Heat rose, but wood blackened not. The dragon's flame shimmered within throat, but he did not release it. Instead, he lifted crates and launched skyward, banking toward Cliff Eyrie. Arya watched, eyes shining. "Hatching? Testing?" Daenerys murmured. "Drogon feels life inside. If they stir, we must be ready." Davos appeared, breathless, their small council in tow. Joan's raven sat on his shoulder, parchment tied. The North reports white sighted as far south as the Barrowlands. The Night's Watch asks aid. Daenerys' jaw clenched. "Always too many fires." Sansa's voice rose. "One war at a time." Gendry exhaled. "Blackfire may strike again soon." His soldiers' resolve wasn't broken, only delayed by fire gone wrong. "Men know." Tyrion flicked dust from sleeve. "Which means we have 2 fronts. One forging ice, one forging dragonflame." "Splendid." He rubbed temples. "We cannot split dragons further. So who handles which front?" Gendry gripped his hammer's cracked haft. "I'll hunt Blackfire again, finish what I started. But I need a new weapon. Dark Sister sheared my hammer. I require Valyrian steel smelted with dragonglass, folded in storm-forged flames." Daenerys' eyes glimmered. "You shall have dragonfire. You shall have steel ancient as blood. The forge beneath Dragonstone awaits." "Menshai." She gestured toward the volcanic mouth steaming on the island's flank. a cavern where black sand melted to glass. Gendry felt pulse quicken. "I'll forge a hammer to shatter shadows." Arya stepped beside him. "And I'll whisper through every tavern from Lys to Pentos until Blackfire's sorcerers choke on their own secrets." Jon's raven cawed, flapped to Gendry's shoulder. Gendry untied the parchment. Jon's hand wrote stark, "Ice marches, send fire." He closed eyes. In their black ring of memory he saw Joffrey sprawled, the Iron Throne shattered, molten metal shaping plowshares. But plowshares could not turn earth frozen by undead storms. Nor could a crownless realm ignore dragons birthed by pirates. Gendry squared shoulders. "We forge a storm of fire and steel and send it north. Then we break Blackfire's shadow." Daenerys extended her hand. He clasped it, calloused smith fingers meeting queenly scars. Sparks of shared purpose danced in the chill sea wind. The forge beneath Dragonstone's ancient heart glowed like the blood of the world. Air trembled. Obsidian pillars wept rivulets of molten glass. Drogon coiled outside the cavern's maw, exhaling flame that funneled through basalt flues. Gendry, stripped to leather apron, raised a billet. Valyrian steel shards and dragonglass sand folded with pure northern iron. He thrust it into the hearth. Flame roared white. Sparks scattered like stars. Above the billet hung a hammerhead mold carved with sigils, a stag rampant, a wolf howling, a dragon in flight. Daenerys, Arya, Jon's raven, Davos, and Tyrion watched from stone ledges. Gendry drew the billet, pounded with a hammer of star steel. Every strike rang through cavern like war drums. Drogon's eyes glowed in rhythm. Fold after fold, the alloy shimmered, stripes of midnight and purple. Sweat coursed down Gendry's spine, yet he felt no fatigue, only the memory of helms crushed, of wildfire screams, of pale pretender smiling with unbleeding face. When the billet stretched long and true, he quenched it in a vat of oil laced with salt water from the shivering sea. Steam billowed, carrying voices that sounded like northern wolves howling across ice. He lifted the bar, set it into mold. Daenerys spoke Valyrian. Drogon's flame surged, filling channels, metal liquefying. Gendry hammered the pins closed, plunged mold into water. 30 heartbeats. Then he cracked it open. The new warhammer gleamed, a head shaped like twin dragon jaws, fangs of obsidian-edged Valyrian steel. The haft, dark ash bound in white wolf hide, felt balanced beyond mortal design. Ancient runes pulsed along its cheeks, fire and blood, winter and storm. Arya's breath caught. "What will you name it?" Gendry turned the weapon, feeling it breathe. "Stormbreaker," he said. "For the wheel we broke, for the storms yet to break." He hoisted it overhead. Drogon roared approval, flame-licking cavern walls but leaving new steel unscorched. 2 weeks later, Stormbreaker bit through Blackfire's shadows in a cavern beneath the Stepstones, where Aegon's sorcerers guarded an altar of green fire and carved dragonbone. With Arya at his side and ironborn cutthroats swarming tunnels, Gendry fought through wildfire-resilient foes, the hammer's dragonglass fangs ripping through salamander-oiled cloaks. At the altar's heart, Aegon stood again, armor cracked where Gendry's earlier blow had splintered bone. Flesh still unscarred, eyes glowing brighter. He lifted Dark Sister, now not just oil shimmer, but pulsing green from wildfire's heart. Shadows clung to him, whispering of ancient pacts. Gendry stepped forward, Stormbreaker humming. Around them, shadows formed by fire danced, alive. Arya slipped into gloom, hunting like silent cat. Aegon's smile was serpentine. "You forged a new hammer. Will you forge a new realm too, bastard?" "I forged this to end yours," Gendry answered. Their clash was thunder meeting hurricane. Dark Sister whistled arcs of green fire. Stormbreaker blocked, each impact a crash of cosmos. The hammer's obsidian fangs chipped Valyrian steel. Dark Sister etched smoky scars across Stormbreaker's jaws. They fought among pools of blazing wildfire that spilled from broken vials, neither daring a misstep. Outside, Daenerys' fleet battered Aegon's. Dragons roared overhead. Drogon and Rhaegal both, grown strong from feasting on whales along the Mander. Green fire met red, the sea hissed. Inside, the duel slowed, breath ragged. Aegon lunged. Gendry pivoted, caught Dark Sisters flat with the hammer's haft, twisted, disarmed. The blade skidded across stone toward Wildfire. Gendry swung Stormbreaker upward into Aegon's ribs, crunch, but no blood. Aegon coughed, soundless, eyes blazing. He seized Stormbreaker's head, the dragonglass edges biting his gauntlet, but not flesh. Heat pulsed. Wildfire flames curved toward him, coating his armor like liquid emerald. Gendry felt weapon wrenched from grip, flung aside. Aegon backhanded him. Gendry slammed into altar stones, stars exploding behind eyes. Aegon reached, picked up Dark Sister, stalked forward through spilling wildfire that parted for him. Arya darted from shadow, needle aimed for his throat. Aegon parried gently, blade tip slashing her shoulder. She hissed, rolled. Gendry pushed up, dizzy. Aegon raised Dark Sister for killing strike. Arya's eyes met Gendry's. No fear, only fierceness. She kicked Aegon's knee to draw his balance. He snarled, pivoted. Gendry called upon every spark of forge fire inside. He lunged for Stormbreaker, fingers closing around half. Wildfire licked the hammer's head, the dragonglass singing. He swung in low arc, catching Aegon behind ankle guard. The blade in Pretender's hand flashed, but too late. Stormbreaker tore through greave, bone, and enchantment alike. Aegon cried out. For first time voice cracked. He stumbled as wildfire flames clung now to him, not as ally but as ravenous enemy, finding cracks in armor. Arya slashed strings behind knee joint. Aegon collapsed. Wildfire pooled, igniting his cloak. He dropped Dark Sister, tried to crawl. Gendry stalked to him, hefting Stormbreaker overhead. Aegon reached with burned hand, eyes now showing fear. I am the last dragon. No. Gendry brought hammer down on helm. Steel crumpled. Flames whooshed, turning emerald then orange as sorcery broke. Aegon Blackfire's body convulsed, then stilled, burning. Arya retrieved needle, breathing harsh. Shadow forged or no, he bled in the end. Gendry wiped soot from face. All things bleed with right steel. The cave shook, barrels of wildfire burst. They fled, carrying Dark Sister and a second egg they discovered, newly stolen from crates before the duel. Outside dragons torched Blackfire ships. Ionian winds scattered cinders. In the end, the Stepstones smoldered but did not boil the sea. Blackfire banners sank, their pretender ash. The world learned Stormbreaker's echo, and with it, the knowledge that a bastard's hammer would ring whenever tyrants wrapped themselves in shadow. Years later, in the quiet that followed, Gendry walked Winterfell's Godswood beside Jon Snow, under a gentle spring snow. They spoke of walls rebuilt, of Night's Watch welcoming wildling children as brothers, of Queen Daenerys' dragon hatchlings circling Dragonmont Dottor. Arya sailed west beyond charts, her letters arriving by gull with tales of far green lands. Census councils thrummed, grain stores full. Tyrion authored treatise on governance called, A Broken Wheel Still Rolls If You Nudge It. Gendry rested Stormbreaker against a weirwood root, white bark stained by memory of wars. Jon clasped his forearm. The realm owes you peace. Gendry smiled. Peace I forge each dawn with nails, not with hammers meant for skulls. He looked up at the red leaves whispering. But if storms gather again. Jon's eyes crinkled. We ride together. In the forge of dawn across rebuilt kingdoms, bells tolled, not for kings slain, but for markets opening, for fleets coming home, for dragons overhead who cast no shadows of fear. The wheel had not vanished, but it creaked now under many hands steering, its spokes tempered by fire and mercy. Gendry returned to Storm's End each summer, watching fields of barley sway where armies once trampled. He taught children the art of turning iron to hose before swords. When they asked if hammers could still slay monsters, he showed them Stormbreaker's dented edge and said, only when mercy fails. Some nights he dreamed green fire and dragon shadow, but more often he dreamed sparks, dancing harmless as fireflies. In those dreams he heard Robert's booming laugh, meld with Arya's quicksilver giggle, and Jon's quiet counsel and Daenerys' steady breath, notes of a new Smith song forging across the realm. And in every waking dawn he walked to his forge, took up hammer and tongs, and shaped yet another link in the endless chain of peace, aware that chains may bind, yet they also hold fast the things worth saving. A hush unbroken by steel or flame has settled over Westeros, a hush so profound that farmers pause behind their plows to marvel at dawn's soft gold, and fishermen lift their nets as though waking in a gentler dream. Yet beneath the calm, new roots push through old stone, and in distant corners of the realm, where watchfires smolder and tide-battered ruins brood, restless powers gather like thunderheads against the horizon. Gendry feels that hush each dawn when he leaves his chambers in Storm's End's east tower and descends to the courtyard forge. He steps through the arch, while salt wind gusts from the Dornish marches, and for a long moment he simply inhales. Coal smoke, brine, fresh-sawn timber from the carpenters, shoring the outer curtain wall. Then he calls the apprentices from their pallets, and the day's music begins. Bellows wheeze, hammers ring, iron sings beneath each blow. The clangor pleases him, yet something within whispers that even this music may soon change key. One spring morning, as gulls quarrel over fish heads on the parapets, a raven settles on the anvil beside his coffee mug. Its feathers are white as snowfall, tipped in shadow at the wings, Jon Snow's bred messenger. The bird tilts its head, black eyes bright, then drops a scroll bound with a shard of pale weirwood. Gendry strokes its smooth back, thinking of black nights on the shivering sea, of ghosts moving beyond the wall where sunlight rarely reaches. He breaks the seal. Jon's ink is steady, the lines spare. Stormsmith. The true winter did not die with the Night King's legions. A hollow wind haunts the Frostfangs. We have tracked wights, not many, but new risen and guided. A necromancer works still, or something older claims the dead. I need the hammer you promised, and I need Arya's eyes. Bring what force you can spare. Brandon's gift is thinly held. I will hold the Shadow Tower until you come. Your brother in forge. Jon. Gendry rolls the parchment, pulse quickening. Jon rarely asks twice. If he summons aid, the threat is grave. Perhaps a last shard of the Night King's will. Perhaps a sorcery still unbound. Either way, iron and fire must travel north. He draws Stormbreaker from its velvet cradle. The hammer's obsidian fangs catch sunrise like twin black stars. Runes along the cheeks glimmer. Years of lesser battles have left nicks upon the haft, but no enemy steel has marred the head. That, he knows, will change. Every weapon's perfect hour ends in the strike that shapes a different age. A steward fetches parchment and quill. Gendry scratches orders. 10 wagons loaded with dragonglass bolts, 200 spears, 30 suits of chain, crates of healed leather. He names the captains and the route. The Boneway north to King's Landing, then by King's Road to Winterfell. Under each order he adds the same line. Forge at every mile. By noon the yard bustles, blacksmiths hammering rivets through wagon hoops, fletchers binding obsidian arrowheads with sinew dipped in tree sap, cooks packing salt pork near straw wrapping the spear points. Along the seawall, the Stormlanders' bright-haired young lordlings chatter about the cold they will meet. Veterans of the Stepstones merely sharpen axes and share no stories. Gendry feels the castle's pulse quiver. He glances at the great keep, where banners ripple, stag rampant stitched beside direwolf and dragon. So far the alliance has held. But war's smoke lingers in men's lungs longer than bards admit, and alliances, like steel, must be reheated lest they grow brittle. That afternoon, Arya arrives on a wind-blown courser, boots muffled with linen. She vaults down in the courtyard and tosses him a grin sprightly as any spring rain. The scar Aegon cut along her cheek has faded to a silver curve that catches firelight like a crescent moon. She mutters that the gulls in the bay still watch her every move. Spies, no doubt. she says, wiping sweat off her brow. Or maybe they remember my pies. He laughs. The sound eases the tightness in his chest. She has ridden up the Dornish coast for days following rumor. Corsairs wearing black fire medallions demand tribute from villages, accusing them of harboring dragon eggs. Most nonsense. But something out there hunts for fire-made flesh. I can smell it. Her gray eyes flick to the hammer. And you've had the same scent in your nostrils since Joan's Raven, haven't you? Since longer, he confesses. Sleeps thin when you dream of whites marching on orphan farms. They feast that night, with Lord's bannermen ringing the long hall. The talk is grain yields and breakwater repairs, ordinary matters. But tension hums in each pause. When Gendry rises, the room falls silent. He speaks simply. The north calls, storm's end will answer. Those who stay shall mind the coasts. Those who go must ride hard and carry their own weight at the forge and at the line. No lord bows out. After the toast, Gendry withdraws to his private study, Stormbreaker laid across his desk like a guardian. Arya follows, closes the door behind them. The hearth fire purrs. She braces her boot on a stool and draws a rolled parchment from her sleeve. I took this off a Bravosi factor in Old Town, she says. He died of a fall before he could deliver it to any master. The parchment bears the sigil of three-headed dragon, but all three heads are black, eye sockets inked with thin crimson. It reads, "To the true dragons east, the hatchlings west now stir." The black fire is shattered, but not the dream. The last living ember of old Valyria lies in the cold heart of ice. Its song will rise again. Move pawns where the lions once ruled. When the moon bleeds, the storm must shatter. He runs a thumb over the closing cipher, twin crossed blades beneath a crescent, same mark as Aegon bore on cloak lining. A surviving cabal still plots. He senses the realm's hush crack, just a hair. Arya stabs a dagger through the parchment into the wooden desk. I missed the head last time. I won if they show again. Gendry squeezes her shoulder. Keep your blade keen. We ride at dawn. 6 days north along the King's Road brings sleet thick as wool and trees bowed with ice. Their column ripples out under gray daylight, wagons creaking, blacksmiths chanting work songs to keep blood warm. At Maidenpool's ruins, they find fisherfolk slaughtered, skins peeled in spiral shapes across boards. Torrin, Gendry's grizzled scout with missing nose from the Stepstones, swears he's seen the pattern before. Sigil of the Night's King. But the cuts are too deliberate for whites. They speak of cult rites. They bury the dead, burn the boards, and press on. At Duskendale, Queen Daenerys intercepts them astride silver mare, a cloak of dragon-black feathers swirling from her shoulders. 2 unsullied ride at her back, but no dragons darken the sky. Drogon circles, Dragonmont still. Rhaegal guards new hatchlings in Dragonstone's crypt. War has called their wings only in dreams. She greets Gendry with a quiet nod, glances at Stormbreaker. Rumors say that hammer shattered a shadow who could not bleed. Is it ready to break more ghosts? It hasn't rusted. He smiles small, then sobers. Jon says necromancy stirs again. Daenerys' mouth tightens. Then winter never ended. I ride north as well, 10 unsullied with me. Gendry hesitates. Your counsel. Margaery and Sansa hold it in my absence. New seeds were planted for that reason. Her gaze hardens. When the dead threaten the living, I ride. At dusk the combined host passes under Harrenhal's charred towers. Fires burn in some windows again. Brian's garrison posted to hold the Riverlands. She descends to greet them in courtyard gloom, her dented armor repaired, but she looks worried. Her scouts found fresh graves outside a hamlet north of Maidenpool, bodies missing tongues and hearts. She feared reavers but saw no ship signs. She entreats Daenerys to send word south, keep small folk behind palisades. When asked if she will join, Brienne shakes her head. Jaime is ill, fever and melancholy. He speaks of children I cannot see. She says softly, The maester prescribes rest and honeyed milk. Yet she looks north as they leave, and longing glints in her eyes. Snow falls thicker by the day. Wolves shadow them at dusk, lean but silent, not hunting, only pacing the column like ghostly outriders. Arya murmurs to one gray alpha, palm extended. The wolf pauses, ears twitch, then melts into trees. Nymeria still watches. She tells Gendry. She knows large things move. 3 nights from Winterfell, they meet a courier from Castle Black, bearing Jon's second raven. The rider is gaunt, ice clinging to beard. He collapses in Daenerys' arms. The raven's letter is shorter. They rise in the haunted forest, led by woman of milk-white skin clothed in ash. Her breath births whites anew. Have lost half of Eastwatch's relief. Shadow Tower's stones bleed frost. I hold. Hurry. Den. The courier breathes once more and dies. His chest wound is black at edges. Frostbite that spreads like rot, as though ice itself carried poison. Stormlanders mutter prayers. Unsullied, stand impassive. Gendry orders pyre built, but flames struggle to catch on wood wet with sleet. Daenerys kneels by the corpse until the first embers stutter to life, her face unreadable. That night she seeks Gendry at his campfire. You are Robert's son, she says. He carried a hammer, waged a war, broke a crown, but more crowns rose. How do we break what always returns? He watches sparks spiral into dark. Maybe crowns rise because men forget the weight of the hammer once fear fades. She gazes toward north where Aurora quivers low. Then storm must strike harder each time. He glances at her. Silver hair, violet eyes, shoulders bowing under invisible iron. The hammer's no good without the hand that holds it, and hands tire. For a moment, the hush deepens between them, the hush of hearts weary from forging peace. But when dawn seeps between trees, both stand in stirrups, cloaks snapping white snow from shoulders. Winterfell's gates yawn open to admit them into candlelit courtyards. The castle bristles with new walls of blackened wood. Direwolf banners hang stiff in ice. Sansa meets them in the godswood, cloak sable-lined with fox fur. Bran sits beside the heart tree, his pale face touched by falling snow. He moves little these days, yet rumors say his mind ranges across time's weave. Sansa greets Daenerys with a nod of respect, gives Gendry a faint smile. Jon rides beyond the wall. We feed refugees flooding south. Hundreds. Small folk from the Gift, even giants from the high passes. Something drives them. Her voice trembles on that word. Drives. She leads them to the great hall, where Rhaegal's scales line the rafters, tribute from Daenerys to ward off new winter. There they plan long into night. Daenerys, Sansa, Gendry, Arya, Davos, who arrived by fast horse, and Bran watching silently from his carved weirwood throne. They trace maps of the Frostfangs, mark cave systems, ice rivers. Davos recounts rumors from Skagos. White wolves sing to blue lights in fog. Arya sketches the spiral cuts found at Maidenpool. Gendry outlines forge logistics, if they must arm wildlings. At last Bran speaks, voice soft but carrying. The Ice Lords follow a mother of storms not born of snow but of ash and grief. She seeks a heart among hammer blows and dragonfire. If she finds it, the wall will shatter for good. Gendry frowns. Heart. Bran's blank eyes settle on him. Your hammer beat one crown to ruin. Her sorrow beats still. She was forged in Summerhall's flames. She calls herself Lady of Ember Frost. Daenerys stiffens. Summerhall burned decades ago. Sansa breathes. Rumors of a babe born in those flames, the Mad King's sister, perished. A ghost story. Da. Bran blinks slow. Ghosts sometimes wear flesh. The council breaks silent. Plans shift. Fire mage leading undead. Summerhall blood mixed with ice. They must find her. Cut her song. Gendry feels Stormbreaker thrum, as though hearing its name carried on winter wind. That night Arya joins him on ramparts, hair whipped by icy gusts. "I'll scout the Frostfangs alone," she says. "You follow with Cullum. If I find this ember frost, I send Nymeria." He hates the notion, but knows she moves quicker than any host. They clasp wrists. Then she disappears into night, needle strapped under fur. 4 days later, they cross the wall at Castle Black, the rebuilt gates reinforced with dragonglass studs. Jon meets them astride a shaggy courser, ghost prowling great white shadow beside. He and Gendry clasp arms, the embrace terse but full of shared memory. Jon's eyes seem older, like steel tempered too often. Frost rims his beard. He leads them west along the ruined ring forts until Shadow Tower's silhouette rises, a jagged crown of black stone. Fires burn in arrow slits but faint. Inside, the garrison of mixed wildlings and black brothers looks half ghosts, gaunt, silent, armor frosted. Some wear talismans of carved weirwood, others rub glowing dragonglass beads. Jon ushers Daenerys and Gendry into war room, carved from ice-dark stone. There stands Tormund Giantsbane, Hair Gon Grier, and Lady Lyanna Mormont, no longer child but bright-eyed commander of spear maidens. They greet Storm's End's lords and unsullied with nods of iron kinship. These days titles matter less when the dead stir. Jon gestures at a parchment spread. 3 villages razed last moon. Tracks show whites but guided lines, precise, no chaos. At their center, a pyre of frozen ash. He points at Rune, Bran marked. Twice we tried to follow, twice ambushed. They guard her path. They speak of forging mobile forges on sledges, of carrying hornbeams soaked in wildling pine resin for firewalls. Daenerys pledges Rhaegal to strafe if the weather clears. Drogon circles Winterfell still, but she vows to call him if sky breaks. When council ends, Jon leads Gendry to parapet. The moon paints the blighted valley silver. In far distance, a flicker pulses, blue flame on ridge. They signal, Jon says. Ace if unafraid. Gendry hefts Stormbreaker. We answer next. Their column pushes west across frost-bitten forest. Snow devours sounds, save crunch of boots and distant howl of wind leaking between peaks. The sled forges hiss. Smoke ghosting low to ground. Every hour Gendry walks the line, checking spearheads, tightening rivets, murmuring jokes to keep spirits bright. Jon rides flank with Ghost. Daenerys leads Unsullied square aglow with torchlight. On 7th night, wolf song erupts, 3 long notes, 1 short. Gendry's heart jolts, Arya's call. They halt. Wolves materialize from tree shadows. Eyes phosphor green. Nymeria steps forward, massive form cloaked in frost. A scrap of Braavosi silk dangles from collar. She circles Gendry once, then lopes east, glancing back. Message clear. They follow through narrow gorge where cliffs oozed black ice. Snowflakes swirl luminous in torch flare. At gorge's throat lies a hollow lit by pale witchfire. Crystals of frozen flame hang from trees like chandeliers. In the clearing's heart stands Arya, sword tipped down, her face streaked with ash. Beyond her waits a figure clad in tattered cloak of ember gray. Skin white as milk, hair coal, lips cracked with crimson. She caresses a staff crowned by twisting coals that burn cold blue. Arya's voice drifts. She said she remembers dying in fire and waking in snow. She remembers her brother's screams and mother's wailing as stone melted at Summerhall. She says dragons stole her life. She will steal theirs. The woman, Ember Frost, turns violet eyes on Daenerys, recognition like lightning. Blood of my blood. She whispers, voice a hiss of cinder. I was sister to the dragon, cast unborn to flame, caught by ice's breath. I rose to find my house broken, thrones burned, brothers slain. I gather what remains. Sorrow, memory, bone. Daenerys steps forward. If you rise for vengeance, you rise against the living who share your blood. Lay down staff. Ember lifts free hand. Snowflakes crystallize mid-air, then spin into spiral of razor shards. I lay nothing down till fire weeps for me. She gestures. The trees tremble. From drifts clawed hands emerge. Whites in armor, older than the conquest, their breastplates stamped with three-headed dragons. They stand, silent as statues. Unsullied snap spears into shield wall. Stormlanders ready axes. Wildling archers notch dragonglass arrows. Jon raises Longclaw. Its rippled steel catches blue flame. Gendry advances. Stormbreaker hums, runes glowing faint. Ember Frost's gaze locks on hammer. The wheel's bane, she murmurs. Forged of broken iron, tempered in dragon breath. Heartstone of King's Lane. She smiles, thin as frost. Break me then. Wind gusts. Whites charge. Battle clashes under frozen chandeliers. Spears pierce ancient mail. Dragonglass splinters, bone dee. Yet Ember's staff whirls blue flame arcs. Those struck freeze solid before shattering. Unsullied fall, brittle shards scattering. Arya dances around Ember, darting stabs, each parried by ash-rimmed staff. Jon hacks White Captain, then barrels toward Ember, but Frost aura repels him. Frost creeping across Longclaw's fuller. Gendry wades through dead, hammer-crushing skull after skull. Stormbreaker's fangs flare crimson where dragonglass meets undead flesh. Each blow sends shockwave, bones blasting apart. He reaches Ember. Blue flame whips. He blocks, fire splashing ice, frost creeping up haft. He swings heavy. Ember glides aside, staff tapping hammerhead. Blue sparks hiss, runes dim. She laughs hollow, lips cracking. You fight the wrong forge, she croons. Your hammer breaks steel, not grief. Mine births grief eternal. Arya leaps, slices Ember's cheek. Thin line of black blood steams, but does not flow. Ember's staff lashes. Arya tumbles back, breath wheezing. Daenerys strides into circle, Valyrian dagger drawn. She speaks Dracarys, demand for obedience. Challenge of blood. Ember's eyes flare violet. Yes, sister. Burn me as father burned us both. She opens arms. Rhaegal shrieks overhead, clouds part. Moon shines. Green dragonfire lances down. Ember Frost raises staff. Blue flame column meets green, colors twisting. Where they clash, the air screams. Snow turns to vapor. Warriors stagger. Gendry sides his moment. He rotates Stormbreaker, mutters Smith's prayer, then hurls hammer end over end straight into heart of blue-green maelstrom. The dragonglass fangs pierce Ember's breast, pin her to staff. Blue fire flickers, choked. Ember gasps, eyes wide. Frost cracks across staff. Green fire surges. She looks at Daenerys, tears perhaps, or melting ice-streaked cheeks. Sister, she whispers. Song ended. Body shatters to ash and snow. The whites quake, collapsing where they stand. Limbs brittle. Silence booms across clearing. Green fire gutters. Snow flutters again like feathers. Gendry kneels, winded. The hammer's half protrudes from drift of ash. Runes dim but whole. Arya drags it free, returns to him. He grips it, strokes fangs, which glow faint gold. Jon surveys fallen. If ghosts birth ghosts, we must be ready still, he murmurs. Daenerys kneels at ash mound, sifts gray through fingers. Family lost before knowing love. She says softly, may she rest now. Dawn pales horizon. Wolves howl long note, answered by horn from Shadow Tower. Signal of safety. Survivors gather, tend wounded. Ghost sniffs ash. Huffs. Census Raven arrives by midday with council seal. Grain riots quell in King's Landing. Blackfire ships sink in Stepstone storms. Realm holds. Gendry stands with Stormbreaker planted in thawing ground. He feels hush. Settle anew. But this hush is not fragile. It rings with resilience hammered in battle's forge. Arya nudges him. Song ended. Until next verse, he says. They march south at dusk, weary yet lighter. At Winterfell, Bran watches from ramparts, eyes silver. He smiles faint, first time in moons. Spring breezes carry scent of budding thistle. Back in Storm's End weeks later, Gendry wakes before dawn to sound not of steel, but of waves lapping gentle. He steps onto parapet. Sea lies calm, banners lax. Peace, for now. He touches hammer's fangs, they glint in newborn sun. Inside forge, apprentices greet him with sleepy bows. He sets stormbreaker on mantle, picks up smaller hammer, and moves to anvil where a farmer's plowshare awaits mending. Sparks leap, soft light dancing. The hush remains, but it no longer hides fear. It waits, expectant, like a world catching breath between beats. Gendry's hammer falls, steady forging links in chain of dawn. Beyond citadel walls, dragons wheel under high clouds, where rising thermals bear them ever upward. They carve lazy spirals across a sky wiped clean of storm. And below, the realm, scarred yet unbroken, settles into the true labor of peace, remembering what nearly destroyed it, and forging day by day the steel strong enough to hold against whatever night might come. The days of spring unfurled across Westeros like a silken banner, and in their gentle flutter the realm learned to breathe again. Yet peace, like steel just drawn from the forge, remained malleable, liable to twist if struck by unwary hands. In tower libraries, maesters copied new laws onto vellum still smelling of stretched calfskin. On windswept fields, farmers bent sweaty backs over seedbeds, and on lonely sea cliffs, sentries watched horizons for sails that might bear old ghosts in fresh paint. Storm's End woke to gulls squabbling over scraps on the battlements. Gendry stood atop the dawn tower, Stormbreaker resting against his boot, salt wind snarling his hair. Below, the castle thrummed. Baggage mules brayed, kilns roared, garrison sergeants barked drill orders. Storm's End had never bustled so. Caravans came weekly now, bringing iron ore from the marches, flax from Tumbleton, even jars of ambergris from distant Sisterton, to mix into the crests of new forged helms. He glanced north along the coast. There, faint as a pinprick against the green of Dorne's outlying hills, a single column of black smoke unfurled. Just yesterday, that same plume would have clenched his gut in dread. Today it merely reminded him the realm was wide, too wide to watch all at once. Below the tower, Maester Heron strode across the yard. A raven perched atop the leather tube clutched in his hand. Seeing the stormsmith upon the parapet, Heron raised the tube overhead and waved until Gendry signaled understanding. Orders and tidings never ceased, and the forge masters had begun measuring them by how many scrolls each demanded. He descended spiral steps 3 at a time. Handles, slapping stone. Heron met him at the arch, breathless, gray hair plastered to his skull. The seal of the North, my lord. He pressed the tube into Gendry's palm. The wax bore the direwolf and 3 interwoven snowflakes. Jon, Sansa, and Bran all affixed their mark now, a symbol of stark unanimity. Gendry broke it with a thumb. To the Lord of the Storm and Smith of the Realm, the letter began. Roadwork from the neck to the gift nears completion. Grain routed through Moat Caelan reaches Shadow Tower thrice a fortnight. Sister Lyanna Mormont sends thanks for plowshares that do not snap in frozen loam. Yet new tidings darken the wall. Rangers discovered runes of cracked obsidian, shaped like spiderwebs, arrayed across the snowfields east of Hardhome. When broken, they release a moan that steals heat from flesh. We suspect remnants of the Ember priestesses who served the Lady Frost. Samuel's tomes from the Citadel call such runes rime webs, last forged when the first long night waned. We request your counsel on forging countersigns in iron. In lighter news, Tormund prepares a wedding feast. He claims ghost bears now roam the Frostfangs, and he means to capture one for the bridal roast. Pray the gods keep him from success. The North holds. May the storms keep watch. Jon Snow, Warden of the Far North. Gendry read it twice, once for meaning, once for weight. The realm still simmered with sorcery in its crevices. He thanked Heron, then paced toward the lower forge to raise the letter with his masters. As he walked beneath buttresses mottled with sea salt, a second raven swept overhead, beating toward the rookery. On its leg glinted a copper ring shaped like twin roses, Margaery's seal. 2 ravens in a single morning never boded leisure. He quickened his step. The rose-signed letter proved briefer but more unsettling. A caravan bound from Highgarden to King's Landing vanished 2 leagues north of Bitterbridge. No bodies. No smoke. Just boots. Scattered grain, and horses stirred too docile for a raid. Witnesses claimed a sweet, unfamiliar scent hung in the air, hyacinth wreathed with rot. Margaery added that Willis Tyrell had ridden out with 200 mounted retainers to chase the missing wagons. She ended with an entreaty. If you have eyes in the Reach, bid them open. If Storm's End can spare steel, bid it shine. Bah! Gendry rubbed his jaw for a long moment. Hyacinth and rot, he muttered. Not wildfire, not cold sorcery. That suggestion smelled of alchemy turned poison. He gathered his captains in the gallery above the forge. Bundles of chain dangled like iron vines around them, glowing faint where stray embers drifted. Clan chiefs from the Rainwood and sailmasters from Shipbreaker Bay stood shoulder to shoulder with blacksmiths in soot-pocked aprons. Gendry held up both letters. Peace is never a single anvil, he said. The North calls for counter-runes. The Reach may call for swords. We serve both. Then too. Captain Sir Dylan Crescent. Scars from Aegon's ambush carved across his brow. Spoke first. Our yard teems with recruits who have yet to feel winter or battle. Send them north. The cold will temper them. Keep our veterans for the Reach, where cunning might weigh heavier than brawn. Drell Shoals, a riverlander who had pledged service after the Blackfire fleet, sank his ferry village, frowned. Young lads freeze faster than they harden. Gendry raised a palm. We forge companies like we forge blades. Heat, then quench. 2 score light infantry and 10 smiths ride to the wall with fresh steel. Veterans and rangers ride to Bitterbridge. I lead them. Mentor. Heron sucked a breath. My lord the smiths know their trade without me. Saddle the black courser. We leave by first moonrise. Night spilled over the Dornish horizon when the column departed. 300 horse, 90 bowmen, and 5 great wagons of arms. Sea mist painted their cloaks. Moonlight glazed helm crests, a dull pewter sheen. Gendry rode beneath the stag banner, stormbreaker strapped across his back. Beside him, Sir Dylan Crescent twirled a mace whose flanged head dripped with fresh oil. They traveled silent until dawn pinked the sky above Bronzegate. There, as frost peeled from wildflowers by the road, a rider in gold and green livery galloped toward them. He dismounted in a spray of mud and bowed quick, breath misting. Lord Gendry. Sir Willis bids you make haste. We found the caravan, but what remains is. He swallowed hard. Best you see. 6 leagues farther, the king's road dipped into a thicket of cedar and blackthorn. Steam hung low to earth. Sweet and cloying, like boiled wine left too long in kettle. Gendry's nostrils flared. Hyacinth. Under it, a note of rot. Stormlanders loosened swords. The trees parted onto a glade. Wagons lay toppled, wheels half sunk in moss. Grain spilled in neat ellipses, as though poured by careful hand. The wood and iron chests that once carried Reach cheeses sat intact, lids open. Inside each, bundles of folded cloaks replaced cheese. Every cloak was white, every clasp a silver rose. Willis Tyrell waited astride a chestnut destrier, his crippled leg braced in an ornate stirrup. Around him, his knights formed a wary half-circle, helms off, faces pale. Gendry. Willis's voice cracked. When we arrived, This was all we found. No blood, no bodies, no tracks save our own. Gendry dismounted, crouched by one cloak. The cloth smelled faintly of mint. Fresh. Not worn. Look closer, Willa said. Gendry lifted the cloak. Beneath lay a single white rose, its petals wilted to gray at edges. And in its heart, a mote of crimson no larger than a drop of ink. Dried blood. He scanned the glade. On every spilled mound of grain sprouted a rose just like it. Hundreds. Sir Dylan swore. What devilry seeds flowers overnight? Willis rubbed his temple. There's more. He nodded toward the cedar line. Gendry followed, boots sinking in moss until he reached a ring of stones stacked waist high. The ring enclosed a shallow pit lined with satin. At its center, a pedestal of cedar wood supported an iron mask, featureless save a mouthhole sewn shut with wire. Gendry lifted it. A sweet scent wafted, near narcotic. He pulled back. His gut fluttered. Willis tossed an oak branch into the pit. Instantly, the satin caught blue flame. No heat, just flame. The wood shriveled, silent. In 3 heartbeats, ash remained. Flame vanished. Gendry stared. This is alchemy unlike the pyromancers. No sulfur, no heat signature. Willis exhaled. Someone's growing roses in death, and they stole my people to tend the garden. Gendry's hands curled around Stormbreaker's haft. We track them. Their scouts spread in spokes across the reach. On the 3rd evening, a pair of black-clad rangers returned bearing news. A hamlet called Sunshield, 3 leagues west, had been stripped of folk, leaving rose-stitched cloaks pegged to every house door, blood dots centered on each. Gendry and Willis pushed their column at a canter, racing sunset. When they crested the last low ridge, Sunshield lay hollow and weirdly clean. Cookfires burnt unattended. Chickens strutted courtyards. But no human voice stirred. Willa's knights searched cottages. Beds unmade, dinners half-eaten, cups tipped. Tracks, when found, all led south, to a stand of pale willows encircling an ancient barrow mound. White roses glimmered at its base, though no gardener lived for miles. They ringed the mound, torches flickering citron and early dark. A shaft, crudely dug, pierced the barrow's crown. From it floated that sweet hyacinth scent. Below, faint chanting rose, voices woven in minor chords, half singing, half moaning. Gendry set Stormbreaker at edge. I go first. Willis lifted reins. I follow. Hobble be damned. Sir Dylan signaled 2 torchbearers. The 4 descended. Earth walls pressed close, roots dangling like black veins. The chant thickened until syllables smeared into vibration. They stepped into a cavern. Candle sconces glowed cold white. Altar stones etched with maze-like sigils stood at cardinal points. Between them kneeled 30 townsfolk, eyes rolled skyward, mouths slack. Their hands cupped white roses, thorns pierced palms, sap mingling with blood in polished bowls before them. At the chambers, heart rose a statue of a woman robed in petals, iron mask sewn to face. A smell of antiseptic rot coiled around her. Willis hissed. The Lady of the Bleeding Rose. The Reach's ghost tale mothers tell babes to keep them from night fields. Gendry advanced. Ghost tales walk too often of late. He swung Stormbreaker in slow arc. Altar stones cracked. The chant faltered. A hooded figure stepped from behind the statue, limbs gliding as though oiled. The mask across her face mirrored the iron effigies. Her voice drifted hollow. Steel born of dragons and storm. Welcome. Gendry planted his feet. Release these folk. They are not bound, the figure whispered. Behind her, kneelers rose, yet eyes remained unseeing. Each pressed rose to heart. Smiling beatific. Blood runnels trickled between fingers. Willis' sword rasped. Enchantments may hold their minds. Break them. The figure's mask tilted. I mend, not break. The Storm Queen above hoards fire. The Wolf King hoards ice. We keep the fracture sweet. Preserve it in bloom. Gendry lifted hammer. Your bloom reeks of blood. The figure raised one hand. The kneelers turned. From the altar bowls, they scooped viscous mix of blood and sap, flinging it. Where drops struck soil, pale fire licked upward, birthing saplings of thorn that writhed and grew arms tipped with bone claws. Worshippers' smiles broadened, ruby wet. Willis' blade flashed, severing a vine arm. It bled black ichor. Sir Dylan's mace crushed a second, but sprouting stumps writhed anew. Thornlings dragged knights off balance. Gendry swung stormbreaker in a crescent, obliterating three at once. Dragonglass splinters sizzled in sap-domed flesh. The masked woman sang, a single crystalline note. White candles blazed blue. A lattice of pale fire rose between her and Gendry, sigils swirling like petals in storm. Willis stumbled, sweat beading. That lattice eats warmth. Gendry gritted teeth, hammered sigils. Stormbreaker collided, sparks showering silver and green. Lattice bent, but did not yield. Then a second note cut the cavern. Sharp, alive. Arya sprang from the shaft, dagger flashing. She landed atop statue, drove Valyrian steel into the masked woman's shoulder. Cloth parted, but instead of flesh, a swirl of rose petals burst forth, falling in soft cascade. Inside the ripped garment, no ribs, only thorny vines coiled around a heart of glass. The figure wheeled, backhanding Arya off plinth. Gendry caught her mid-fall. She spat dust. Told you not to break things without me. Gendry barked dry laugh, then locked gaze on the glass heart, glowing through torn robe. He hurled Stormbreaker. Haft first. It pierced the lattice, tips embedding in glass. A spidery crack webbed outward. The masked woman shrieked, lattice shattered. Thornlings wilted, kneelers sagged unconscious. Mercy, she hissed, voice rasped by wind. I am root, stem, petal. Cut me. Seed falls. Nan. Gendry stalked close, wrenched hammer free. Seed rots if soil is salted. He drove blunt side into the heart. Glass exploded, petals curling black. Light snuffed. The figure sagged, vines unraveling. Mask clanged stone. Where petals touched floor, they shriveled to ash. Silence crashed down. Willis exhaled long. We prune that thread, it seems. Arya nudged a kneeler. He groaned, eyelids fluttering. Spell broken. She wiped blade on cloak. Gendry checked altar bowls. Residue crystallized, inert. He smashed them for good measure. Then he turned to Willis. Your folk survive. The roses may grow no more. Willis clapped his shoulder. The reach owes storm's end again. We tally the debt in harvest. Dawn-bathed sunshield in rose gold. Rescued townsfolk wept beside wagons. Knights packed thorns into tar sacks for pyres. Arya sat on a fence post, nibbling an apple. Gendry joined her. She eyed him sidelong. You'll ride north to shape those counter runes now, after we escort these people home. Woo. She echoed. Her grin darted quick. Nymeria wants cold air again. So do I. He raised brow. The north grows harsher each year Bran draws on roots. Still you roam. Stark blood. She said, tapping her chest. We roam. He looked past field to where crows circled a distant tree. Roam with me then. Forge the runes. See the wall, maybe carve new stories in whatever ice monsters remain. Her smile widened. Thought you'd never ask. They shared the apple to core. At Winterfell, 2 moons later, they stood beneath the godswood canopy, as Bran brushed fingers over a sheet of dark iron etched with glowing crimson lines. Rime web counter sigil, raised in dragonglass dust bound by molten copper. Bran's eyelids fluttered. This will hold, if set in circles of 9. Jon tapped the iron. We weld plates into the walls, repaired sections, then bury paired medallions at outlying watch posts. Gendry nodded. Iron sings best when repeating itself. Sansa, heavy in council robes, smiled faintly. Perhaps peace sings best too. Arya snorted. Peace hums, easier to miss than song. Jon's eyes warmed. Then let us craft a quieter world. And so it went. Plates were forged and hauled up ice ladders to stud the wall's scarred heights. Brave masons hammered them true. In the reach, Willis replanted honest roses in sun-shielded soil. When blooms opened, their hearts held dewdrops, not blood. Throughout the realm, folk began naming children for those who'd broken storms and shadows. Little Gendrys and Aryas toddled through market lanes, harmless hammers or wooden needles clutched in fists. But in the deep places, beneath the ruins of Valyria, inside vaults undiscovered in the Shadowlands, other whispers stirred. None reached Westeros at first, yet maesters translating smuggled parchment from Korth found warnings of soul forges that bound grief to metal. Daenerys convened a conclave at Dragonstone. Gendry traveled by swift galley. Stormbreaker lashed on deck. There, under vaulted ceilings, they debated. To sail across the narrow sea and quiet those whispers, or to fortify home and let distant continents reckon their own ghosts. Gendry spoke last. Steel forgives nothing, he said. We broke our realm's curses with hammer and fire. But we cannot police the world. What we can do is teach. Share what we learned. How to temper iron with mercy, dragonglass with humility. Daenerys studied Stormbreaker. A hammer to build, not to crush. Yes, he said. But keep the hammer oiled all the same. She smiled. A small, weary thing, but steadfast. Years turned in measured strokes. Gendry and Arya spent summers at Storm's End, winters in the north, always between new errands of peace. Most times their tasks were humble. Repairing aqueducts collapsed under frost, moderating border spats over sheep, training village youths to shoe horses. Occasionally, the hammer rang louder. A flare of ice magic in Skagos, a merchant prince dabbling in alchemical thorns. Each time, Stormbreaker answered. Each time the threat shrank sooner, like distant thunder rumbling, but never quite arriving. In memory of battles past, the Council of Banners commissioned a monument atop a low hill outside King's Landing. Not a statue of a king, nor a queen, nor even a dragon, but an anvil of black steel ringed by concentric circles of stone. On the outermost circle, names of innocents lost to crowns and sorcery were etched. On the next, the names of those who forged the peace. At the center, atop the anvil, rested a hammer wrought in common iron. Any visitor might lift it, feel the weight, and know both burden and possibility. Gendry attended the dedication only once. He and Arya arrived at dawn before crowds. They walked the circles silently, touched each name they recognized. Ned Stark Micah, the butcher's boy. Shireen Baratheon, Missandei of Enneath, Jojen Reed, Pipar the Watchman, and hundreds more. At the anvil, Arya hefted the iron hammer, tried a swing. It rang a pleasing chime. High, hopeful. She returned it to its rest. Gendry asked, "Do you miss the noise of war?" She gazed across sunlit fields where small folk already tilled. "No," she said. "But I miss the feeling that every day matters as sharply." He nodded. "That edge dulls if we let it." She slipped her hand into his. "Then let's never let it." On an evening thick with humming insects, they stood on Storm's End sea wall watching Rhaegal's brood wheel against sunset. 7 dragons now, each the size of a coastline keep. Wings beat thunder over waves. Scales scattered gold flecks across water. Rhaegal dove, snatched a breaching tuna. Spray dazzled in crimson light. "Dragons grow," Gendry mused, arm around Arya's shoulders. "Do you think the world is ready?" "I think," she said, eyes following the dragon's dance. "The world is always half ready." "Half afraid." But after storms break, the sky looks vast. Plenty of room to build or destroy. Gendry pressed a kiss to her hair. Then we keep forging. And they did. Forging nails that held new wooden halls together. Forging spikes that anchored watchtowers to living rock. Forging blank medallions awaiting new sigils future generations would invent. For years to come, ballads told of a bastard smith who shattered crowns, of a wolf girl who danced between shadows, of a queen who chose counsel over throne, of a night's watch reborn as guardians of every creed. Some versions gilded deeds with dragonfire, others trimmed them down to human shape. But the truest tale was simpler. It began with a hammer ringing in an alley forge, and it never truly ended, because every morning hammers still rang, on Winterfell ramparts where Jon taught orphans the craft, on driftmark docks where Valyrian shipwrights riveted hulls, in little villages where nameless tinsmiths mended kettles. Each swing echoed an unspoken vow: break what must be broken, shape what must endure, and temper all things, even victory, with the memory of grief. So the hush returned, not of dread but of expectation, a realm waiting for the next song, yet unafraid to face the beat that would start it. Above, dragons traced lazy spirals across a sky slowly turning from violent history toward uncharted dawn, their shadows vast, their promise vaster still.